Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
It would have been better if she'd gotten married. How much cat food and sausages can you buy at the grocery store? Helen grumbled. Listen to you. There's a man sitting on every corner waiting for me to come out. Not only am I over 30, but I have 2 cats as a dowry, smiled Jenna. I don't remember if I told you were crazy or not. Already more calm and peaceful tone, asked her friend. Yes, or you don't let me forget it. Come on, we'll have tea, cake. Today was Jenna's 32nd birthday. We decided to celebrate on another day, but no one was going to refuse the cake today. The friends went up to the apartment, gossiped a little over a mug of tea. And after a couple of hours, Helen went home. Oh, I feel Saturday will be fun, she said in farewell. Definitely confirmed by Jenna. On the way home, Helen met another of their friends, Maria. As they passed a local homeless man, Maria became as stiff and stared at him. Could it be something? Helen was surprised. Look, I know how to wean him off. It's a pity to feed stray cats and homeless people. I got an idea. I suggest we play it out. What if it all works out? And she'll come to her senses, get her life back on track. She'll be like everyone else. Do you have a plan? Maria went towards the homeless man, trying to hide her squeamishness as carefully as possible. He looked at her in surprise and then held out a dirty palm. Good evening, beautiful girl. Perhaps you can help the unfortunate. For milk, for bread. How much do you want? Maria immediately took out 100 from her coat pocket and slipped the bill into his dirty hand. And then she asked, how would you like to eat and wash for free? I'm all for it, but nothing's free. What in return? He asked. Well, if you are interested, then I am waiting for you at the same place on Saturday at 10 o'clock, not to be late. That's when you'll find out all the details. The man nodded and put the money in his pocket. When the women had moved far enough away so that he couldn't hear them, Helen asked, Maria, are you crazy? What are you doing? These are homeless people. I really doubt the adequacy of your plan. Jenna is a friend of ours. I remember, and like you, I wish her all the best. Maria reassured her. Everything's gonna be fine. Don't worry. Well, you know what? Jenna's 32. How much longer can you run around feeding all the homeless? When are we gonna get married? And have kids? Just teach her a lesson once. I think that'll be enough. You don't have to be involved. I'll do it myself, just to play along. She'll thank us later. You'll see. Helen nodded incredulously. They agreed to meet here Saturday morning and went home. And on Saturday at 10 o'clock sharp, all 3 of them were standing at the meeting place. What's up? Let's go? Maria turned to the man. Or did you change your mind? He shook his head negatively and obediently, rising from the steps of the store. They followed the women to Maria's home. And how will you explain everything? Whispered Helen clarified. No way. Yesterday I told him about the holiday, and today early in the morning he has already run off to go fishing. As he put it, he's been waiting for a good time, she laughed. So don't worry. What about the bum? Well, we'll open him up, feed him, give him a haircut. He'll look like a human being. I remember my son in the village in the cowshed slipped and with all his might slapped himself in the manure. Can you imagine? It was summer, it was hot. He was half dry by the time he got home. I still remember washing his hair. After that, nothing scares me anymore. You know, nothing scares me at all. Maria lived on the next block. The homeless man walked a little farther away so as not to attract attention. The thought that he would be able to eat and wash himself made him indescribably happy. He had forgotten the last time he had seen hot water. In the bathhouse, he was understandably kept out. In the apartment, Magiana took a full bath for him, gave him a towel and clean clothes. She's ready to wash. You can take as long as you want. No one's rushing you. Here's a disposable blade. Shave your beard, then we'll fix your hair. But basically go, and she nodded in the direction of the bathroom. And you still haven't told me what is required of me in return. Reminded the man. Don't worry about anything you can't handle. You meet a woman, you spend the evening with her. Maybe even a kiss. If you're lucky, of course. And then you tell her the truth about yourself, who you really are. I think it's even worth a little sass at the end to teach her a lesson she'll remember for the rest of her life. And that's it, Bush smiled. Yeah, were you worried they'd send you to a construction site or a vegetable garden? Well, I can do anything, the man said quietly in his defense. And when he opened the bathroom door, Maria called out to him. Your name is Alex, Alexander. Go on, Alex. Be afraid. I washed Alex for an hour and a half, and when he reappeared before his benefactors, they gasped in surprise. Before them stood a completely different man. Without a beard, he looked much younger, of course, but it did not spoil him at all. On the contrary, he was very good-looking. Excellent result. Satisfied, Maria smiled. Sits down on a stool. Let's get your hair in order. By the way, there are lice. Well, I can't answer for sure, but I think not. Alex was cautious. From the outside, it could seem that he was a little afraid of these women, but he was careful to hide it. And already in half an hour, he looked like an ordinary average man. Seeing his reflection in the mirror, the guy could not believe his eyes. I can't even remember the last time I saw myself like this. You just don't forget about the deal. Roughly reminded Maria. Yes, I remember. And we're going to eat? He didn't get confused. Maria nodded and headed for the kitchen. There she put pilaf on cut bread and poured currant compote into a glass. The women watched him observe what was offered and marveled at his appetite. To their amazement, he ate almost a loaf of bread. And when he finished, he smiled contentedly and leaned back in his chair. Thank you. Dinner was delicious. Well, you haven't been relaxing at all. We should be at the cafe in 2 hours. And your cover story's still not ready. Thank God, Maria's imagination was in full swing, and soon he was a budding furniture entrepreneur. Hence the calluses on his hands. His task was to seduce Ben. It must be said that the essence of the plan of these women Yatsenyuk never fully understood. But he swore and swore that he would do everything in his power. He had to at least work off his bath and lunch. A couple of hours later, he came to the cafe with his new acquaintances, where Jenna was waiting for them. And this is our present to you. Dear Stash proudly presented Alex Maria. His name is Alexander, and for today, he will keep you company. Are you leaving? The birthday girl was surprised. No, we are staying too. Will you even remember how it is to be next to a real man? Helen cheerfully supported her friends. Alexander I stood as if thunderstruck and looked at the birthday girl with all his eyes. Of course, he recognized her at once. And how could it be otherwise? This is the same blue-eyed nymph who periodically bought him pies in the store and always asked the sales girls to keep them up, because it tastes better that way. And coffee, she never forgot about him, even gave him money sometimes. Thanks to Jenna, Alexander could have a hot meal once in a while. For a couple seconds, he admired his girlfriend for the evening, and then he suddenly remembered what he had to do at the end, and he instantly liked the plan. He immediately wanted to call the whole thing off and just leave, but he realized he couldn't do that, not because he was afraid of anyone. No, he wanted to take the chance that fate had given him and spend at least a little time with this beautiful woman, to talk to her. After all, there might not be a second chance. Hello me, Alex. Happy birthday. Jenna looked at the unexpected beau with curiosity and caught herself thinking that he seemed familiar to her, as if she had seen him before. But it couldn't be, she pondered. I'm pretty sure we've never met this guy before. Hi, thank you very much, she replied aloud. And we used to be able to date. Believe me, I wouldn't have forgotten you. Alex sneered, trying not to show how much he liked her. He remembered how often he had eaten pies and dreamed that one day he would be able to talk to her. And now he's looking into her eyes. So it's a dream come true, even if it's not exactly what he wanted. But it's better than nothing. Meanwhile, the birthday girl led all the guests to the preset table. Alexander kindly filled the girls' glasses with champagne and was the first to make a toast. The friends, noticing Jenna's interest in the guy, gloated a little in their hearts. They were sure that when the show would come to an end, she would realize that she should not waste so much of her precious time on the unworthy, and after such a shakeup, she would definitely take care of her personal life. The time at the parties flew simply unnoticed. When the champagne gave them courage, the girls began to perform their favorite songs. And when their turn came to their table, Helen with a grin offered to sing Alexander. He was confused at first, because I don't remember the last time I sang anything. But he quickly pulled himself together and asked only to find the words to be simpler. And then he took the microphone and started singing. His voice was so beautiful that many women listened with bated breath. And when Alexander finished singing, the hall exploded with applause. Jenna clapped heartily. She even thought she had a little crush on this unknown guest at her party. Her friends looked at her every now and then, coming to the opinion that events were not going according to their plan. And as the birthday girl studied, Helen whispered to Alex, "So let's take another 20 minutes and move on to part 2 of the plan. And I would like to give up the second part." "I'm not sure," Alex said. "She's nice. I don't want to hurt her." "Alex, have you decided you're going to be her lover? Do you even remember where we picked you up this morning? Do you think if you come here in your original form, they'd have let you in? Not to mention the songs. Don't forget who you are. A bum. And I remember that very well," he said with resentment in his voice. "That's what I'm saying. And you and I had a deal. Well, then I'm breaking it. You can regrow my beard and glue my hair back on." He said and smiled wryly. Back at the table, Jenna noticed that her friend was arguing with her new acquaintance. She was curious and decided to approach them, but immediately stopped, noticing that they were heading towards her. "What's going on?" Jenna asked. Maria looked at her friend guiltily. "Jenna, I'm sorry. It was originally my idea. Anyway, this Alex is not an entrepreneur. And what I don't quite understand is that at this second, Alex wanted to just disappear into thin air. It was probably the first time he had ever felt ashamed of his homeless status. But it was impossible to change anything at this moment. Alex grew up in an ordinary family in a provincial town. His mother raised him and his older brother alone, since his father died early, and returning from the army, was stunned. On the eve of his arrival, the parental house burned to the ground. His mother lived alone at that time and did not manage to get out. She suffocated. It all happened at night. At the time of the fire, the older brother had already moved to New York and lived there with his family. When he arrived at his mother's funeral, he was as shocked as Alex. No one understood how all this could have happened. Alex was simply heartbroken. For 2 years, he dreamed how he would hug his mother on his return home. And now he's back. But the dream never came true. What should I do? He asked his brother. No shelter, no clothes, no money. Everyone has to move on with money. I will help you at first, of course, but then I can't take you in myself. You must understand. We're in a 2-bedroom and we're studying. And in a couple of months, we'll have a second child. And it will be difficult for you in the capital. That's why I'm offering you an option. I'll rent you an apartment for 2 months and pay for it. During this time, you have to find a job and get on your feet. I can't help you with anything else." The older brother kept his promise, and Alex moved into the rented accommodation the same day. The apartment was very small and dirty, but after the army, it could not frighten him. The guy found a job, got a job as a driver on a shuttle bus. He passed his license before the army. The salary, of course, is small, but there was enough for food and housing. 6 months passed at this pace, and then something happened that finally knocked him out of his rut. One day, coming home from work in a dark alley, he was attacked. Alex was a tough guy, but there were too many attackers. The guy woke up in the hospital with broken ribs and a concussion. They ended up taking all his money and documents. It was payday. He had planned to pay the rent, and now he had nothing to pay with. A couple of days later, he wrote a statement and left the hospital, although the doctors discouraged him. He called his brother and told him everything as it was, but he just shrugged his shoulders and told Alex to make his own way. Everyone is an adult and should solve their own problems. The landlord didn't make any concessions either and kicked the guy out the door with all his devious attempts. There was no choice. He took his things and went wherever he wanted to go. No passport, no driver's license, no money to work, and no one took his money. So began his wandering life from city to city. Over the past few years, he's changed several places. until he invented this little town where Jenna lived. And then he was lucky enough to find an abandoned house and stayed for a long time. And now Alex stood in front of Jenna and prayed to all the gods that Helen would lose the power of speech and not be able to utter another word. But that was not to be. Have you known this Alexander long? I just didn't recognize him. He's the homeless guy you're always buying pies with. He begs at the supermarket across the street from your house. I didn't recognize him. All we did was wash him and save his beard. Maria spoke loudly and was very pleased with herself, and even too loud, because the guests at the neighboring tables began to look back at them. Jenna immediately recognized him. Why did he seem so familiar? She saw those eyes almost every day, but the behavior of her friends infuriated her. She turned sharply to the guys, reached out her hand, went, "You're crazy. Where are you going with him?" Maria was indignant. "You did not realize who he is." Supported Helen. "I do. But you don't realize that homeless people are people too. And that makes me sad." Alex got up from the table and approached Jenna. They left the place under the gaze of the people present. The first few minutes they walked in silence. Alex was terribly embarrassed. Was Jenna angry? "Why did you agree to this?" she asked, unable to stand the tension. "I didn't know. I was offered a bath and a good meal. For a small favor, I just couldn't refuse. But who knew it would end up like this?" He looked so defenseless that Jenna felt sorry for him. To washing. For ordinary people, this procedure is so familiar. And here it's a reward, a gift of fate. A man would do anything for it. Forget it. How did you end up on the street? Will you tell me? Alex nodded and offered her a walk in the park. They wandered along the paths for about 2 hours, changing benches. And he was telling. The girl listened attentively, asked questions, and more came to the conclusion that everyone in this world has his own destiny. Some are luckier than others, and some are less fortunate. Why didn't you go to the police? She wondered. The documents were stolen. Maybe they could have helped you there. I wanted to, but I fell asleep on a bench outside the house. The residents called the police, and they took me away. I tried to explain that I'd been robbed, but nobody would listen. They said if I didn't leave town soon, they'd lock me up. Fine me for what? And I didn't want to risk it. The prospect of going to jail for a few years didn't appeal to me either. Did your brother know you're homeless? He won't return my calls. I don't have the money to go to New York, and I don't have any documents. Besides, I can't find him there. I was in my hometown the other day, found out he sold his mother's house. Or rather, the land. Yeah, it's a situation. For some time they sat silently on the bench, and each thought about his own. Where do you live now? Gas station on the outskirts of the city. It has long been empty there and at night, and during the day they wander in search of food. By the way, I've been meaning to thank you for the pies and coffee. You have no idea how much I enjoyed them. Always hot. Alex smiled. And your mom, who was she? Jenna continued to ask questions. She worked at the school until the last junior high teacher. My father was a driver, as well as I wanted to open a category to work as a trucker. But I guess it wasn't meant to be. To be honest, I don't even remember what it's like to live a normal life. But thanks to your friends, today was a refreshing memory. Yeah, they were friends, I'll give you that. They sat in silence for a while. And then Jenna asked, and you fundamentally in the city to live in the village is not suitable? Yes, I don't care, smiled Alex. Now the weather is good, but in winter the cold will start again. That's the most difficult period. And why do you ask? Just I have a house there is empty. I inherited it from my grandmother. It's not a palace, of course, but everyone gets one. I'm sure it's warm. They'll renovate the school, and there's a pond nearby where the local men catch redfish. Anyway, I can let you go there. You'll find some work there. Grandmothers can help with household chores, at least for food. In short, if you want, you can get out of it. Alex was extremely surprised. He was used to the fact that people shun him like a leper. And Jenna also offers accommodation. So you're not afraid to mess with me, just let a stranger stay here. Well, why not? Grandma's house. I think she'd approve. My grandmother was very kind. I can help with money, of course, but not very often. I have a small salary myself. No, no money. Refused the same Alex. If there's a pond and fish, I won't go hungry. So let's go. With a smile asked his new acquaintance. What about right now? Why drag it out? Are the buses still running? Or do you need to pack some things? Your friend has my bag, and in it, things dear to me, and I would like to take it. No problem. Then let's go to Maria's. Jenna jumped up from the bench so abruptly that she felt a little dizzy. Apparently the champagne hadn't completely eroded. They went into Maria, who showed her displeasure, but did not say anything. Then they went to Jenna and got the keys to Grandma's house. And an hour later they were on the bus. The journey was to take an hour and a half. The young people reached the village in the dark. The house was cozy and warm inside. All that needed to be done was a little airing and tidying up. The old furniture was covered with a thick layer of dust. But Alex was cheering. Without a doubt, this was 100 times better than freezing cold. On the edge of town. But how do you like it? Jenna smiled and looked at the guy. And when she saw his eyes glowing with gratitude, she understood. Words were not needed. While Alex cleaned up the room, Jenna quickly cut sandwiches and spared the eggs. They bought groceries on the way to the house, and after dinner, looking into the room, the girl was extremely surprised. It was very clean. And then her attention was attracted by an unfamiliar thing, a photograph, which stood on the dresser. Who is it? She asked Alex, taking the picture in her hands. My parents are the only thing I have left. I took this picture with me in the army, so it was kept, but everything else was burned. It's one of those things you really care about. Yes, I haven't parted with it all these years. Alex returned to the kitchen and began to wash the dishes, while Jenna watched him silently thinking about something. And then suddenly she asked, I just don't understand. According to your story, you were beaten, robbed. Why didn't the police do anything about it? They should have been the first to come to your aid? I agree. I don't understand it myself. I wondered why they were trying so hard to run me out of town. And then I came to the conclusion that they were connected to the gang. I have no other explanation, and my friends wouldn't stop. Jenna, you've lived in this town all these years. Was there no one to help at all? Alex smiled sadly. I wasn't a very sociable guy when I was in school. No, I had some buddies before the army. We spent a lot of time with them. But when I got back, half of them were in jail and half of them had left town. It wasn't a very good company. To be honest, I'm even glad I escaped from them in the army, so to speak. They made a man out of me there. There were guys I worked with, but we didn't have time to make friends. And at work? Wasn't there any paperwork to prove your identity? Jenna kept trying to get to the bottom of it. Box wouldn't even listen to me. He said from the start that he didn't need such a lousy employee, that he would only go bankrupt with me. But he looked strange. It was like he'd been forced to do it. What makes you think that? Because he apologized, pointed firmly at the door, but still apologized, as if he was sorry he had to do that to me. I wonder who it was that had to be smart. Think for yourself. A lot of water has passed since then. Several times I tried to restore documents when I already lived in other cities, came or got to the police, and told them what and how they tried to find in the database evidence that I wrote a statement about the robbery and loss of documents. But it wasn't there. It was like there was nothing at all, you know? No trace of it. And they all told me to go home, and they'd sort it out locally. But I couldn't go back there. I mean, they told me to get out of here. Hurry up. Very interesting, like in the movies, Jenna said wistfully. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in that situation. Okay, I'm done. I have an idea. I won't get your hopes up, but maybe we can find a way out. We'll figure it out in the morning. Right now I'm tired and sleepy. I'll sleep in Grandma's bedroom and you can sleep in the other room. I'll do that. No problem, as long as it's on the floor and not outside. Why on the floor? It's unnecessary to have a couch in the room. We'll find some bedding. A new life begins, Alex. Time to get used to the comforts of home. It's not a 5-star hotel, but it's still comfortable. Oh, really? I'm thrilled. Honestly, I still can't believe I'm on the bright side. I mean, can things really get better in my life? This morning, Alex woke up earlier than he used to. No light, no dawn. Jenna didn't wake him up. He decided to explore the neighborhood. And when he went outside, he couldn't believe his eyes. It was so beautiful around. He walked around the house, noted for himself what needed to be repaired. He found a stock of firewood, left from the time when his grandmother was alive, and he was overjoyed. He found some fruit trees at the end of the house. The apples were not ripe yet, but the plums were already sweet. He picked a few for Jenna. There were also pear and apricot trees. Apparently, Grandma was a good hostess. When Alex was walking along the overgrown weedy vegetable garden, he saw one of the neighbors and immediately waved to him. The man looked at him strangely, but responded to the greeting. When he returned home, he found Jenna awake and making breakfast sandwiches out of leftover bread and ham. The kettle was whistling on the stove. "Good morning," Alex said. "Good morning. Have you been out?" "Yes. Imagine, there's even wood in the barn." "We should also check the cellar," Anna advised. After breakfast, Alex suggested we go to the pond, have a look and get some fresh air. Maybe even go fishing. Jenna agreed. She hadn't been to the pond for a long time, nor had she been fishing. They found a couple of fishing rods in the barn, a shovel to dig for worms, and they hit the road. But 5 minutes later, they were already there. The pond was very close. All around, all fallen green. Ducks were swimming in the water. You could tell they were domesticated. They weren't afraid of people. Jenna loved this place very much. She used to come here as a child with her father, then with her ex-husband, Alex. And the whole time, they hardly spoke. Everyone was busy doing their own thing while she put away the fishing rods. Toth went out to get worms. To her surprise, he returned a few minutes later with a jar of fat worms that were just as eager to be hooked. And an hour later, they already had several fish in the bucket, enough not only for lunch, but also for dinner. The young people were about to return home, where there was still much to do, when a middle-aged man approached the pond. "Who are you?" he asked sternly. "Greg, good afternoon. Don't you recognize me?" "I'm Jenna, Grandma Nina's granddaughter," laughed the girl. "It's really pathetic." "Grew a tack," he replied. "Looking closer, what are you doing here?" Or just decided to show her husband our fabulous pond. Meet Alex. But he's not a husband, he's a friend. He's staying at Grandma's house for a while. "Why don't you stay in town?" "Got caught up in a situation. You're hiding?" the uncle asked cautiously. "No, I just miss the fresh air. And he likes fishing very much." "Speaking of you, Ben, still the local district officer." Jenna's been friends with Ben since she was a little girl. When she visited her grandmother, they spent a lot of time together. The guys had a lot of experiences. There were pleasant memories and those that would like to forget. In a word, they were as weird as they could be. "Yes, of course," Greg replied. "Where can he go?" "What are you interested in?" "Yes, I wanted to see him," Jenna smiled. "I thought we could meet and talk about this and that." Greg smiled. Jenna turned back and answered, "So there he goes." As she looked into the distance, she saw the silhouette of a man approaching them, and soon she recognized it as the grown man of her childhood friend. "Wow, how's it going?" "Weird face," exclaimed Jenna and hurried towards him. "Yes, it can't be." "How long has it been, and what are you doing in our neighborhood?" Ben was surprised and hugged her lightly. Only he had been calling her Rag for a long time, since high school. She really was always in a hurry. She wanted to see everything while she was in the village. She couldn't stay in one place for more than half an hour, so that's how she was teased. "It's been a long time since anyone called me that," she said with a smile. "How are you?" "I hear you're a wife." "I am, and I just became a father." "I'm doing just fine." "What's it like being a husband yourself?" asked a friend, nodding in the direction of Alex. The friend went home to introduce. When she introduced the men to each other, they shook hands. Ben then positioned himself not far from them. She waited for a while the old friend threw both his fishing rods and approached him again. "Zen, I really need your help." He looked at her carefully and realized from his eyes that the matter was serious. Alex himself did not have the courage to approach, since recently he had been very wary of law enforcement officers. So he decided to sit back and wait. Jenna briefly outlined the situation that had happened to Alex. She answered a few other questions and soon named Alex himself. Murat, what a confusing story, Ben said, scrutinizing him. Who did you cross? How should I know? Alex answered softly. It seemed that he was afraid of Ben. And what do you want in the end? Just to get new documents or to get to the truth? Honestly, for me, I don't look back, but I want to restore my documents so that I can live normally. Normal means without looking back, but I understand you. Today's a day off, and tomorrow I'll see what I can do to help you. I hear you're staying at Grandma Nina's house. So as soon as I find out something, I'll find you myself. Understood. Alex nodded and went back to fishing. Jenna chatted with her old friend for a while and returned to her fishing rod. And half an hour later, the young men went home, leaving the other fishermen behind their fascinating occupation. Alex hadn't said another word since his conversation with Ben, and Jenna couldn't help but notice. What's the matter? She asked. Nothing. Nothing's wrong. I'm just worried about getting kicked out of here too. As soon as the police get involved, things don't always turn in my favor. You just don't trust people anymore. That's probably true. I won't argue with that. I've tried many times to settle things legally, and every time I've gotten the wrong end of the stick. I don't understand you, Jenna wondered. You know how many organizations we have that are supposed to help people like me who find themselves in difficult situations. But it's all beautiful, only in theory. And in practice, it turns out to be not so. The system has long been rotten, and there is very little justice in it. I thought there were more good people, but as luck would have it, I met a minority of them. I mean, even your girlfriends, in their actions, there's not much goodness in them either. And now that things have just gotten better, I'm very afraid of losing that. You don't want Jenna to help us. I don't know. Jenna, I'm worried that when you get back to town, he's gonna change his position. That's what I'm worried about. No, Alex, he's a good man, and he's very right. I know it's hard for you to trust a stranger, but please try. If anyone can help you, it will be him. I have no choice, the boy grinned. Well, we'll see. Alex started to clean the fish, and the greedy one decided to avoid the local store to buy some food. After all, there was practically nothing. I had to take everything at once, from salt and matches to household chemicals. She came home with 2 huge bags full of all sorts of stuff. Wow, why did you carry it all by yourself? Asked Alex, a little upset. He even wondered how she managed to carry it all so thin. Come on, Jenna replied, out of breath. I just didn't feel like running a few times, and we're going to fry fish. I bought her some vegetable oil. Yeah, I've already cleaned everything. I just need to find a frying pan. Why don't you put the bags out first, so you know where and what you're going to put? I'm gonna go check it out. Is the refrigerator working or not? Grandma's refrigerator was very old. There was a lot of dust inside. There were stains somewhere. I had to clean it for a long time before turning it on. And when we plugged it in, to Jenna's delight, it made a loud noise. It worked. While she was fiddling, Alex found a frying pan and started frying fish. Turns out he was pretty good at it. Alex was not the kind of person who was used to complaining about his fate. During the years of his life as a homeless man, there were all sorts of things. Sometimes it even happened that he didn't eat for a day or two. The feeling of hunger didn't bother him usually, but now that he had enough food, he was savoring every bite. He still couldn't believe that now he could live in a house that had not only walls and ceiling, but also a lot of household necessities. To his surprise, he wasn't even ashamed that Jenna had filled his refrigerator with food. Rather, he was grateful to her immensely. He believed that someday he would have the opportunity to thank her properly and repay her debts. And if not, he would at least remember her with warmth. He could not believe that he would be able to stay here for a long time. But he could appreciate the good things in life. After lunch, Jenna suggested he do a huge load of laundry. Unfortunately, her grandmother didn't have a modern washing machine, but there was an old one in the pantry. They had managed to bring water into the house a long time ago, but it was still a lot of work. You know, and I begin to understand, Ben, why he called you a rag. Alex smiled. You have good hearing, don't you? Jenna wondered. After all, when they were talking to Ben and Alex was standing quite far away. But yeah, I can't complain. You can't sit still. Well, of course, I have to go to work tomorrow. And I still have a lot to do before tonight. Are you going home tonight? Yeah, I'm taking the bus tonight. My cats have already cursed me. I've left them plenty of food and water, but they miss me. Do you have cats? I thought you were tearing up the grass in the driveway. Jenna looked at him in surprise. She hadn't realized that sometimes he watched her. After she walked away from the store he frequented. Why were you watching me? She asked with a smile. Peeping. That would be more accurate. Sometimes. You're a late-night shopper. I used to sit there till 10 o'clock when I saw I was home. I'd leave too. You got a lot of dogs out there. And some of them, if anything, aren't quite so well behaved. Jenna looked at him, trying to remember if she'd ever noticed him or not. Apparently not. And why was he doing it? She decided not to find out in the laundry. They did get started. The whole process took a couple hours. Alex did everything himself. Jenna was just telling him where to put things. After rummaging through the fashions, they found some of her father's old clothes. He'd worn them when he was in his early 30s. Apparently, he'd left them behind so he'd have something to change into when he came to visit. There were pants, shorts, t-shirts, socks. It all came in handy now. The dress suit Alex had been wearing at the cafe, he returned to Maria. In return, she gave him her husband's old clothes, clean tires, and that's what he'd been wearing all these days. His old clothes had been thrown away without even asking. At least now he had something to wear. It seemed to bother Jenna more than him, though. She chattered incessantly. Her mouth wasn't closed for more than a second. Like a hen or a caring mother. Spilling out advice, telling him which way the store was, which way was the shortcut. Where the police post office was. Like he was a little kid and couldn't find anything on his own. Another on Alex's side would have resented it. But he listened intently, trying to figure out if he was interested or just liked her voice. When the laundry was done, it was already starting to get dark outside. It was time to get ready for the bus. Before leaving, she checked her cell phone. There were several missed calls from Lena and Maria. But she didn't call her friends back. She was still angry with them. She decided to tell them everything in person. Closing her purse, she suddenly remembered something important. Oh, I almost forgot. One last present for today. She took out of her bag an old cell phone, a cot, and then from her purse a SIM card and handed it to Alex. What for? Who am I going to call? He smiled. Well, at least to me, I've put my number there just in case. You'll tell me what Jenna will do with your documents. Okay, then you call me when we get there too, he asked, embarrassed. Then she pulled a couple hundred of their bills out of her wallet and held them out to Alex. Todd lowered his eyes. He didn't want to take the money, especially so much she pushed with her tongue, trying to ignore it, and put them on the dresser. But that was it. And I ran. No need to walk me home. The bus stop is across the street. The bus will be here any minute. I hope you settle in soon. I won't miss you. Call me if you need anything. Thank you, Jenna, for everything. Hello, cats. That last part made the girl smile a little. Usually no one said hello to her kitty. This was so cute. In front, she said and jumped out of the house. Alex went to the window, trying to see where the bus would pick her up. Jenna was right. Anna had only just approached the bus stop as transportation immediately pulled up. As the bus disappeared from his sight, Alex finally realized that this wasn't really a dream. He looked around. A house indeed. He could live here now. There is food in the fridge, he has fishing rods and a pond. Not far away is money on the dresser, just in case. The guy tried to remember the last time luck had smiled on him like that, but he couldn't. Suddenly, a plate with the heads from the roach caught his eye. Jenna had wanted to feed some neighbor's cat and had completely forgotten. So he took the plate and went out on the porch, put it on the edge of the porch so it wouldn't get caught in the door, and went into the house. There was still plenty to do. I didn't want to just sit around. I had to do something to take my mind off the sad thoughts. When Jenna left in the house, it became so quiet and empty, it was even surprising, as if she filled it with some warmth and coziness. Alex didn't get upset about it. He didn't expect her to live here with him. An hour or two later, when he went out for some fresh air, he noticed that it was completely dark outside. The plate he'd left behind was empty. Sleeping on the bottom step was a gray, huge striped cat that didn't even twitch when Alex stepped out onto the porch. "But hey, buddy, how do you like your treats?" asked him Alex, as if the cat could answer him. The animal stretched and was ready to leave, but the man grabbed him in his tenacious hands and pulled him to himself. "Don't worry, you won't eat. I'll eat you." "I have a fridge full of food," Alex said, stroking the cat. "Let's be friends." For a few minutes he sat like that, talking to the cat and stroking his ear. He had already changed his mind to leave. He liked it himself. And suddenly Alex heard some strange, unfamiliar noise, which came from the house. At first he didn't realize what it was, but then he remembered the phone Jenna had left behind and jumped up sharply from the porch. Alex didn't immediately figure out how to answer it, but after a few seconds he found the right button. "Hello," he said hesitantly. "Hi, it's me, Jenna. I'm home." "Are you okay?" "Hi. I'm fine. I made a new friend." "Who?" "Guess what? A wool sack with a mustache and a fluffy tail. And this is a kitty cat visiting." "Cats are good," Jenna replied with a smile. "Yes, kitties are good," Alex joked. Jenna froze in amazement for a second. But then, when she heard him chuckle, she guessed that it was a joke. "I don't know, I haven't tried it," she joked back. "But next time you come, take one of your own and we'll try it together." The thought of eating her cat made her sick for a second, but it was really funny. "Okay, I'll think about it. I'm glad you're doing well. I'm gonna go. I've got things to do. Good night." "Good night to you too," said Alex and hung up. Jenna got home about half an hour ago, but did not immediately remember that she had promised to call. Most of all, she wanted to take a shower and go to bed. She had been outstanding these past 2 days, tired from moving around. Not only that, after a bath, Jenna comfortably settled down on the couch and called her kitties to pet them. At the same time, she was watching the news on TV when someone rang the doorbell. It wasn't hard to guess who decided to drop by. While she was riding home on the bus, Maria managed to call her 10 times. Apparently, she was passing by or went to check on purpose. Saw a light in the window. That's why she went upstairs. When she opened the door, her hunch was confirmed. Maria was standing on the doorstep with Helen hiding behind her. "What do you want?" "With a challenge?" asked Jenna, looking at them both. Maria looked at her friend guiltily. She realized they'd overreacted when they came up with this stupid plan of theirs. "And you're still mad." "We all understand. We're here to make amends," she said and held out a bottle of wine. "It's a little late for a drink. I have to work tomorrow," Jenna replied grudgingly. "Jenna, I'm sorry about this. Now I know it's silly, but let us in, please." Zoma stepped a little to the side, allowing them to enter the apartment at least so that the neighbors wouldn't hear the conversation. Then all three of them made their way into the kitchen. Helen obligingly pulled 3 glasses from a cabinet and found a corkscrew in a drawer. And there was an avalanche. "What I don't understand is, what were you trying to accomplish?" Jenna asked. "But to be honest, I don't really understand it now either," Maria admitted. "I wanted to keep you away from all those beggars, both leather and furry. I thought that this Alex would start to behave in a boorish way. Nasty somehow, and you'd be turned away from them once and for all. And he turned out to be kind of normal, because they are normal. They're not normal. Just because a person's homeless doesn't mean they're fucked up. You even realize that. Look, but you're good too. You went off with him to the middle of nowhere. For 2 whole days. Where were you?" And Jenna briefly told them everything that had happened during that period. Her friends listened to her, and gradually their eyebrows rose in surprise. "Jenna, you're crazy. You let a stranger into Bacca's house. He's going to take everything out of there tomorrow. He'll leave you nothing but empty walls. What will you do then?" Helen asked. Jenna shook her head. She hadn't expected them to understand. Girlfriends were very alien at times, unbreakable. "Well, first of all, there's nothing to steal there. The house is old. Secondly, it's none of your business who I let in or where I go. When will you finally realize that I'm an adult and I have the right to make my own decisions, even if you don't like them? So no one but you likes them," Maria resented. Okay, I'm sorry. I realize in my heart I have too much pity for vagrants. So be it. I guess we'll have to accept it sometime. But you know if I were you, I'd take a closer look at that LX. I think he's a bit cloudy. Mash, it's a good thing you're not in my shoes. By the way, he asked me to tell you thanks for the bath and food. He remembers human kindness. And thank you from me, too, for such an extraordinary acquaintance. I never would have thought to help him myself. I just wouldn't have dared if you hadn't cleaned him up. It would have been better if you hadn't, Helen muttered to herself, because she didn't like her friend's story. Don't fall in love with him. You need a normal man, not this one, suddenly said Maria. But then she caught Jenna's angry look. I wasn't planning on it. I just want to help him. He's not a bad man. He's just unlucky in life. Come on, help him out, but be careful. It's kind of a messy story with his IDs. Jenna's friends weren't really that awful. They went to church on holidays, gave their old stuff to the needy. When they could, once a year, they bought gifts for kids in orphanages. It seemed to them that it was necessary to help. But not everyone was worthy of their help. For example, the same vagrants are worthy. A rather strange categorization of the needy. But that's just the way it was. Jenna didn't share their opinion. She didn't think that if a cat was sick or dirty, she couldn't buy him the same sausage or some food. But so the world was asking for Maria drinking wine from a glass of peace. If you don't continue to be weird, Jenna replied and smiled. She didn't have that many girlfriends to lose the ones who were there for her. After all, they were the ones who had supported her when she divorced her first husband. And for that she was still very grateful. Okay, when I get home, I'll pack your bum some more of my husband's old stuff. I'll bring the bag tomorrow. I hope you're not squeamish. Thank you. Not the homeless guy's name is Alex. Can it be Alex or LX? No, he's not squeamish. Sure, bring him in. But it's really late, Helen agreed. Let's get out of here. We won't wake up for work in the morning. The week flew by. There was enough work to do, but for some reason my wife was in such a good mood that everything came easily. On the weekend, she was going to visit a new acquaintance, and at the same time to check how things were going with his documents. They'd only talked on the phone once in that time, and Anna hadn't understood a thing either. Hey, Jenna came by. She asked when she called him. Hi. But it's not clear yet. He said he'd help out, but mostly I'm helping him. Not for free, but I'm helping him. I've already met the neighbors, but they still look at me kind of weird. It's okay, they're just old. Maybe they're afraid of new people. What do you help Ben with? Various things. Let me tell you later. I have to run. All right, we need a speaker. This time Jenna came with a bag of things to bring. She left early on Saturday, and by 10 o'clock, she was on her grandmother's doorstep knocking on doors. Only no one opened the door for her. Jenna nudged the door with her foot. It was unlocked. Stepping inside, she looked around. Alex was nowhere to be found, but nothing had changed in the house, except it was cleaner. There was a pot of soup on the stove, still hot. She opened the pot and smelled the odor. It was a little strange, not spicy for sure, not pork or beef either. Did he really eat the cat? Jenna thought to herself and smiled. Just at that moment, the cat, who had just woken up, lazily came out from under the table, beautiful and rustic. She was relieved at first, but then she thought again. What if this one was a spare? She smiled to herself and her silly thoughts. And then she went to look for Alex, hoping that he was somewhere in the yard or nearby. The Monday morning after Jenna left, Alex woke up early. He had a few things planned for the day, and he wasn't used to sleeping long. He spent the afternoon fixing the barn, and then he came in to cook. He decided that it was better to save food, so for now he should cook soup. It was tasty and nourishing, and it wouldn't hurt to heal my stomach a little. Street life often gave him heartburn, but he was used to it. Warm broth worked wonders, so it was decided to make soup with chicken and vegetables. Alexander cooked it in less than an hour and ate it. Then he took a nap after lunch. He woke up from a loud knock at the door, and opening the door, Ben's voice was heard. Alex shuddered with surprise and quickly got up and went to open the door, even though it was unlocked. Good afternoon, he said when he came out. And don't you take care. I have a conversation. Come on in. Yes, we can use your name, the policeman answered and entered the house. He looked around, assessed the situation. On his face, it was noticeable that he was quite satisfied with what he saw in the house clean and smells great food. The owner is not drunk, so everything is fine. Can I offer you something? There's soup. Can I make tea? No, thank you. I've already had lunch. I lied, Ben. Didn't want to go around this guy, although he did like the smell of the house. Anyway, I looked you up in the database. There's good news and bad news. Which one should I start with? Well, let's start with the bad. Well, the bad news. Okay, the bad news. Well, congratulations are in order. The paperwork says you've been dead for 5 years. What a surprise. How so? Well, it's like this. You were first declared missing and then dead. That's why your brother was able to sell the house. But there's some weird stuff in there too. It wasn't your brother who was looking for you, but your former boss, the one you worked for. In short, it's a pretty slick case. What does that mean? It means someone really wanted the land your house was on. That's how these cases usually turn out. Apparently, your local law enforcers forgot that the bad 90s are long behind them and used some of their old schemes. I looked into it more, and it's not just your house that's been sold, but several others. Do the police have access to such data? Surprised Alex. Well, if you know where to look, you can dig up a lot of things. For example, your brother still lives in New York. He has not changed his place of residence, which means that he probably did not get the money, although his signature is on the deed to the house. The curious thing is that development in those areas started much earlier than all the houses were sold. I would say that someone older than me should be sent there to sort it out, but it probably won't do any good. The roof is solid. If the guys think they're immortal or insured. Hearing about his brother, Alex was even a little relieved. The last thing he wanted to know was that his older brother had something to do with all this. Sometimes the worst thoughts came into his head. What's the good news? He asked, almost hopelessly. There is good news too. If you want, I can help you restore the documents. True, I'll have to break the rules a little, maybe fabricate some certificates. But we live in the middle of nowhere. I don't think anyone's gonna check. I'm not sure you can travel abroad with a passport like that. If they dig deep, they'll get to the truth. But you can live here without any problems. And they'll hire you. Alexander couldn't believe his ears. Usually everyone dismissed him. No one tried to help. Will it work this time? And you'll do it for me. Your wife asked for you, and I can't say no. But I warn you, if you turn out to be a maniac or something worse, I'll put you in jail myself. No, I'm not a maniac. That's for sure. I won't be a problem. I promise. Well, that's great. Then come to the station tomorrow, and we'll see how best to formalize everything. By the way, are you doing something important today? Asked Ben. No, not really. Why? I'm gonna go fix my dad's roof now. Before the rainy season starts, and I could use a couple more hands. Yeah, I'm not very good at roofing. But if you tell me what's going on. Yeah, sure, I'll tell you. Come on then, and Mother will feed us a hot dinner in gratitude. Alexander agreed, and 15 minutes later they were sitting on the roof of his father's house. Greg lived nearby. He wasn't very happy about the new employee, but he wouldn't let them climb on the roof. Age. His back often ached. He knew that Jenna alone would take a long time to mess around, so he didn't object. When they were done, his wife Lydia set the table, baked potatoes with lard under poured homemade sausage, and drew fresh vegetables. And 50 was offered by the master of the house. No, thank you. I don't drink. I'm sure he refused. But as you know, the race itself is fine. He poured himself and his son for appetite. Lydia tended to her guest. Everything smelled delicious. Did you serve? Asked Greg, looking at Alex. I served. Where? On the border. And rank? Sergeant. Good, approvingly, said Greg, and started eating. Alex ate in silence, trying not to join the conversation. There was nothing much to tell about himself, and it was unlikely that they would be interested in listening. And his wanderings, it seemed so unusual to be in the company of people again, who look at him like a normal person. He certainly enjoyed it. And after dinner, he bowed out and headed home. Do you even remember where to go? Ben asked. You didn't get lost. No, I'm good at remembering the way. Professional, so to speak, joked Alex. And the next morning he went to the station, as Ben asked, but the policeman was not there. Tomorrow he will be gone till evening, said the duty officer. Almost the whole day the guy was engaged in repairing an old shed. Then sawed branches on some trees for better fruit. And the next day, Ben himself came to him to tell him that he was dealing with the teenagers who were robbing the grocery store. Took all day to deal with them. Not today either. But I need your help. My dad likes the roofs patched and they want to see the barn. There's a leak there too. You're coming. Alexander agreed. Again he worked with Ben all day, and in the evening he was fed. Nourishing food to take with him. They gave him a piece of homemade lard, a nice one with meat veins, and a loaf of homemade bread. Come back tomorrow for sure. I hope everything will be quiet. We'll take care of your problem, Jenna assured him goodbye. Thursday and Friday also failed to catch Ben on the spot. But Alexander did not despair. Somehow he was sure that this man would not deceive him. It was just the way things were. We'll have to wait a little longer. What? And Alex was good at waiting. Jenna arrived over the weekend. She looked around the house, but couldn't find Alex. But she noticed that there were no daughters in the barn. The girl immediately guessed that he went fishing. Not thinking long, she put the guests in the refrigerator and herself by her hair in a bundle and rolled up her jeans. Went to the pond too. As she got closer, she noticed a familiar silhouette. The girl seemed quite quiet, and only when she got close to him loudly said hello missing. Alexander shuddered with surprise. Hi, I didn't know you were coming, he said with a smile. But if you read the texts, you would know. I don't know how. You'll teach me. But I guess I'll have to. As long as it's a deal, you're welcome to join us. Of course, taking the second rod. As practice shows, the fish likes you more than me. Alex laughed, remembering how last time she pulled out more fish than him. So it's because and affectionate words to say when the rod casts. What kind of words? Just the usual ones. To catch more fish. And here it is that you need to try too. Cheerfully he answered. For a few minutes they sat in silence. And then already Ankit asked, What is it? Jenna advances are in the process. Could you be a little more detailed, she asked. Alexander told her how his week had gone. And it was clear that nothing was clear yet. Well, let's hope he finds the time. He promised. That's what Jenna said when she listened to the end of it. It's okay, I'll wait. Let's hope so. I mean, that'd be great. And you're here to check up on me. Well, actually, I brought you some clothes. Maria packed, and I bought you some goodies. You haven't returned my calls the last couple days. I thought maybe you were sick. Or drunk, he joked. No, I just can't seem to get used to this phone. I only remember it when it rings. I'm not used to them, you know? And I don't drink either. I never said you did. Jenna said wryly and gave him a reproachful look. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. By the way, I could use some clothes. Last time I got so out of it that I had to wash all my clothes. I kept walking around the house in my shoes and worrying about who was coming to visit. Jenna remembered that strange soup and decided to ask, Alex, what did you make the soup out of? It smells good, but it's so unusual. He smiled and looked at her, even looked into the pot. Clever girl, how? Or curious? Just see the woods nearby. I put Silken's hairs there. There was one big one on Thursday, but I used it for soup. There's almost half of it left in the freezer. I'm done. Do I look like a master of all hands? The girl was surprised. Just don't shoot the neighbor's ducks. They won't swear. Jenna made a joke. So, it's good soup. She wouldn't stop. Well, when we get back from fishing. You can try it. I liked it. By the way, hare meat is very useful. Tough and a little bit, but useful. I've never eaten hare before, she admitted. I'd love to try it. They were sitting on the shore and chatting merrily when they heard Ben shouting behind them. I've been looking all over the village for you, and he's fishing. Oh, Jenna, hi. He came closer, shook Alexander's hand. He poked his friend on the cheek, looked into the bucket of fish and smiled. Wow, that's quite a catch. I'll have to give you 40 to keep the fish in the water, not in the bucket. Did it choke? I should. I agreed with Jenna, noticing one red snapper already swimming upside down. In her hands, then had some kind of folder. He opened it and turned to Alexander. Anyway, I've filled out all the paperwork for you. All you need is your signature. I'll take them to our passport lady myself. There will be no objection. Alex was very surprised, but smiled. Did his question move from the dead point? And so unexpectedly. Was it possible? But if you really want, you can fly into space. I heard you wiping your hands, because I'm not going to be here until tonight. Alexander quickly signed where Ben had indicated in passing. He read what he was at least signing. It was really the documents that were needed. The passport application and other certificates. The rest of the paperwork is just a matter of hours. When it's ready, I'll let you know. Ben left and Alexander looked at his friend in surprise. He was not accustomed to see such soulful district police officers. In his life, he usually met others. It's cool at your place, buddy, he said only. Yeah, Jenna's a savvy, small, fussy, little, but savvy. We had a lot of fun together as kids. Do you think it's really possible? I mean, do you think he filled it out himself? I mean, he would have signed it already. But I guess you have to sign it. Just make sure he doesn't make any literacy mistakes. He wasn't very literate in his time, she laughed. Alexander thought. It was necessary to check the correctness of the spelling of his name and surname. Why be upset now? And in fact, what difference does it make? Documents are still documents. How's it going? I was wondering about Jenna. I see you found a lot of interesting things to do around here. Met the neighbors. Alex did not have time to answer anything because their attention was distracted. Svetlana, who was walking along the road past the pond. It was a pretty girl about 25 years old who lived in the house across the street. She smiled so sweetly, winked at Alexander and sang. Hi, Alex. You're catching fish. Jenna looked at this Svetlana in surprise. Cute girl, just a bit out of Anna, and she hadn't seen her here before. Hi, nodded Alexander, waving slightly. Stata walked past, every now and then turning around to get a better look at her possible rival. She had met Alex a couple of days ago, and she liked him very much. Last year, Stata's parents bought a house nearby. Apparently, they decided that it was more fun to live in nature. Their daughter often came to visit them with her children. She had two of them, a boy and a girl. From her looks, it was clear at once that she was single, though she was. She was very good at shooting her eyes. Only Alexander didn't seem to care much. When the light disappeared behind the trees, Jenna asked, Why are you so silent? There's a beautiful girl. What a girl is coming on to you. And you don't have a single muscle on your face. What do I have to do with it? Alex was indignant. I'm not the one who's hitting on her. Well, you should have. See what happens. Jenna will handle the paperwork. We'll get you and Jenna. Alexander looked either hurt or a little annoyed. You know, I wasn't planning on it. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I must have said something wrong. I didn't mean to offend you. I just thought it would be nice if you became a family man. A family man. You need a job and a house to start with, and I'm not ready for that yet. In fact, let's change the subject. She nodded and didn't bring it up again. She talked a little about how her week had gone, and then she suggested that we wrap it up. I really wanted to try that wonderful soup. Come on, feed me quickly, she demanded with the smile of a small child when they entered the house. I'll warm it up for now, and you sit down at the table and shout porridge. Porridge, parried Jenna. Without thinking, I did exactly as he suggested. It looked pretty funny, and just then, another guest knocked on the door. It was Svetlana. Hi, can I be impertinent? Asked the girl and came in without waiting for an answer. I thought I'd bring you some fried fish and cherry pies. Just out of 5. The guests were staring at Jenna so intently that she felt uncomfortable. It was like they were undressing her with their eyes. I said light. She extended her hand in greeting. Jenna, nice to meet you. How long have you lived here? I haven't seen you around here before. I haven't seen you here either. Let's go with you. Okay, you're visiting. Visiting, Jenna smiled. She'll be a long time. So what's it gonna be? What are you interested in? Asked Jenna. She was definitely enjoying this game. I was just asking if you wanted a pie. No, I want soup. I don't like cherry pie. I don't like Alexander either, by the way. She lied to piss off a new acquaintance, yeah. He really liked them last time. There was nothing left to live for. I wondered when the last time had been, but I didn't dare to ask again. He only mumbled out of politeness, probably. Alexander stood near the stove and watched this quiet catfight from a distance. He was very curious how it would end. It was not the first time Sveta tried to make eyes at him. The second time she came to visit with pies. She clearly wanted something more, but she didn't say so directly in his eyes. Want some? Alex offered. Soup? No. If you offered me sushi, rolls, or noodles with shrimp, I'd say yes. You could ask me to a restaurant, for example. If you think you know where I live and soup, let him eat. She said snidely and said goodbye to them. To a restaurant. With what money? I wonder? Thought to himself Jenna, but said nothing aloud. It was immediately clear that the girl's inquiries are not weak. She values herself too highly. Alexander put a bowl of soup on the table, and he went back for another portion for himself. When he sat down at the table, also he jumped. Shit, I forgot to buy bread again. I brought a baguette. It's on the fridge. I'd cut it myself, but I can't. It smells so good. Jenna said cheerfully and started tasting the soup. Old Alex didn't bother. He just broke the baguette into pieces and put it on the table. A magician, she said with a smile. Unusual, but a magician. Did you and your friends dream it up? He asked with his mouth full. She nodded silently. Listen, have you tried looking up your brother on social media? He still doesn't know you're alive. I'm sorry if I'm prying. I just thought no. Alex cried out with hope in his voice. I don't mind. I just don't know how to do it. Well, we can't find anyone on your phone. But from my phone, Jenna took out her smartphone and opened the social network. Since his name is Peter Collins, she dictated aloud to herself. And the age. Well, if I'm 32, he's 47. 32. For some reason, Jenna thought Alexander was definitely over 35. Apparently, life demanded it. She typed in all the search info and name, age, city. And pictures of men appeared on the screen. There were quite a few with the same information. But now it's up to you. If you recognize your brother in the photo, give a shout. Alexander tried for several minutes to find a photo of his brother, but kept bumping into other people's faces. How many could there be? People with the same first and last name in New York. As it turned out, quite a few. Finally, his luck ran out. He saw a picture of Peter with his wife. That's the one. What's he gonna do next? Well, we'll write him a message, Jenna said and started typing. Hello, Peter. I have some information about your brother. Please write to me or call me on the phone. She asked. Yes, write yours while I can't hear the phone. Asked Alex. She added her phone number, hoping that the man would answer immediately. But the miracle did not happen. For several minutes they sat and stupidly PR'd on the phone, but nothing changed. The message was not read. No reply. Okay, don't feel bad. It might be a busy weekend. If he answers or calls, I'll let you know right away. If you want it faster, carry your phone in your pocket. For example, businesslike, added Jenna. But for the sake of something like this, you could certainly wear it. Only now Alexander realized how long it had been since he had seen his brother and how much he missed him. As a child, Petya was almost the most dear person to him. His parents were always away at work, and his brother was always there for him. Yes, sometimes he could scold and give him a spanking, but most of the time they were friends, despite the rather large age difference. What are we going to do? Asked Alex, trying to distract himself from sad thoughts. I don't know, we could go for a walk in the woods in the village. Haven't been there in 100 years, just for fun, or for mushrooms. We could go for mushrooms, if we can find them. I know a clearing where there were a lot of them. There's a tracksuit in the bag. I think it would be perfect for such an occasion. We tried it on. It was only now that Jenna remembered the bag of clothes. Maria had done her best. She'd given me some decent clothes. Maybe, of course, they were out of fashion, but who in the village cared? In a couple of minutes, Alexander was already standing in a new tracksuit and pulling up his shoes. And Jenna found an old borscht in the barn and took out a small knife. "We've got a small basket," Alexander joked, seeing that there was nowhere to put the mushrooms. "I always have one thing for such an occasion," smiled Jenna and took out a small package from her pocket. How Alexander was surprised when in a second this small package turned into a deep bag with handles. It was made of a very thin but quite strong fabric. "You're quite the magician." When the purse was full of mushrooms, Jenna suggested we go home. "Well, it's a shame to leave. Look, they're everywhere, under that tree and over there. But we can go again tomorrow. Anyway, we don't have any more containers. We can't carry it in our hands." "Yeah, what if someone picks them up tomorrow?" Alexander was indignant. "Don't be greedy with big mushrooms for everyone." "We lied so much. What will we do with them?" "Yes, anything we can make stew, fry, even freeze until better times." "What about you, pickling? Do you know how to pickle mushrooms?" Jenna asked. "No, but we can ask your phone." "You're always asking him things, aren't you?" "Asked Google all sorts of things. If I didn't know something, I didn't hesitate to ask what different bugs or flowers were called. Just today, I was just sitting here reading about the benefits of the wonderful." "All right, I'll ask the great Google. He knows everything." It was a half-hour walk home, if not more. They were deep into the woods. Good thing the paths kept them on the road. And the village was already peeking out from behind the bushes. "So first we have to soak them. Let's start there," she suggested, realizing it was the easiest part of the process. "And at the same time we can get some rest." The girl laid down on the old couch in the living room and began to read the rap further. In principle, there was nothing complicated about it. Jenna already wanted to tell Alexander about it, when suddenly she saw that she received a message from his brother. There was his phone number, but opening the correspondence, she saw a few more messages. "Who are you?" "My brother's dead." "What do you know about him?" "What do you want?" And a phone number. Jenna got up from the couch and walked towards Alex. She looked a little worried, but Alexander didn't immediately guess what it was about. Peter answered the phone. Alex was excited at first, but after a second he was relieved. It was obvious from his eyes that the cockroaches in his head were fighting hard. She wondered what he was thinking at that second, but she never dared to ask. He pondered for a moment. Alexander confidently said call. They sat down next to each other on the couch. Jenna dialed Peter's phone number and put it on speakerphone. No one had asked her to do that, but she was so curious to hear what they were going to talk about that she couldn't resist. The beeps and the beeps. It seemed endless. But Peter did answer. "Who is it?" he asked. "Hello, brother," Alex answered, and even a little tear from surprise. "Alex, is really you. I'm still here." Peter immediately passed out. Maybe he couldn't stand the tension or was scared, or maybe he just didn't believe it. I mean, it's a lot of things for them to think about. But just a few seconds later, Jenna's phone came back on. But that was a video call. "Can you do that too?" Alexander wondered, and Jenna immediately pressed the answer button. Now the brothers were face to face. Both looked a little dumbfounded. "Alex, I can't believe my eyes. You've grown up. Oh, it's you. Hi. You didn't get any younger either?" Alex answered cheerfully, looking at his brother's face. "Where have you been? They told me you were dead." Peter looked sad and spoke quite truthfully. There was no point in doubting his words. "And that's why you sold Mother's house." "Oh, it's a long story, Alex. There's so much going on. I'm in no hurry. Go ahead." "Okay, I'm in no hurry either. Listen, while you're at it, keep me in mind. I'm gonna have a couple questions for you later too, and I'd love to answer them. But you tell me first, who's that with you?" Suddenly my brother asked, seeing Jenna out of the corner of his eye. "Your wife is beautiful." She wrinkled her nose a little, but tried not to show that the man. "Hello, my name is Jenna, and no, we're not married. And I'm very interested in hearing your story too. It's really important. Tell it." The man thought for a few seconds, trying to figure out where to start. Anyway, it was winter. When Peter finished his story, Alexander was shocked. He hadn't realized that he'd gotten it too. Of course, he wasn't recognized as dead. To take over their parents' house, but it had not been easy either. The year Alexander left his hometown for his brother, a man came to New York. He was a stout man in his 30s. He looked like a gangster. At first, he politely asked him to sell the house, but Peter refused. Said he didn't believe his brother was dead. Said he'd be looking for him. Replied harshly to the man. But soon he regretted it very much. It was winter. He was driving home in his car when he was suddenly cut off by a foreign car. In that accident, he was seriously injured and hospitalized. In that accident, he was seriously injured and ended up in hospital. And when Peter, all renamed, was lying in the ward, that man came to him again. He leaned over him and quietly said, "Well, now, are you ready to sign the documents?" The brother was not on a joke scared. He did not immediately, but guessed that the accident was not accidentally recognized the car on which that type came. Still, he didn't want to agree. "Well, if not, what then? It's not just my house, it's Alex's. You'll never see your brother again. Don't worry about him anymore. If you want to go after him, I'll help you. I hope your wife will be more talkative. Although I can give her a nice day out too. Maybe then you'll think about it. I've heard. You have a kid already. I love babies. They have such tender necks." That's when Peter realized it was more serious than he thought. There was nothing to do. He agreed to sign the papers the man brought him. He promised not to return to his hometown, not to look for his brother, and to forget this story forever. It is clear that he did not get any money for this piece of land, but he was glad that his family was no longer threatened. True, he made attempts to find Alex, but everything was unsuccessful. According to all the documents, the younger brother was listed as dead. Dashingly, they made it all up, and quickly, and did not even observe the deadlines. It was useless to prove anything to anyone. Yeah, if I'd known you were alive, I never would have stopped. Alex, where do you want to be now? Move in with me, I'll help you. You're my brother, we have no one left but each other. I can't come yet. I don't have papers. If you want to come, come yourself. I'll be glad to see you when I get a chance. But I can't get out until next week. I'll need to find a good deputy, and you'll wait for me. Yeah, of course I will. Where am I going to go from a submarine? Alex replied with a smile. He was glad that he managed to find Peter and dictated his number to him. After all, Jenna was going home soon, and Peter promised to call again. On that note, they said goodbye. Jenna was as happy as Alex and did not hide it. His life could soon change a lot. Ben promised to help with the documents. In him she was sure, and if she managed to establish a relationship with her brother, it would be much better than before. Do you think it would be enough to mow the mushrooms? He asked after a few minutes of silence. They just sat on the couch and tried to realize everything that had just happened. I don't know, maybe it's enough. I've already forgotten about them completely. You're glad you found them? Yeah, of course I am. Thank you. Do you think he'll come? I'm sure he will. I just don't know when. Peter's always been a busy man. All right, let's go do some mushrooms. It's all in the brain. By the end of the day, they managed to prepare a few pickled mushrooms, and the rest they fried and then stewed with sour cream. It turned out very tasty. In the evening, Ben came to visit them. He wanted to have a little chat with his old friend. Since she's been coming here so often, he brought with him a bottle of homemade wine, which was made by his mother from grapes grown in their garden. The girl did not refuse to drink a glass, but did not calculate that it was so strong, and after an hour she felt her eyes closing from fatigue. So as not to fall asleep at the table, she went to another room, and the men decided to talk a little more. "And you do not drink on principle?" Ben asked. "Well, you could say that. In fact, I drank a little when I was a kid, but never much. And there was a period in my life that I don't remember because of alcohol, and I don't want to go back to it. And when was that? About 2 years after I became homeless. One day, I found a case of vodka outside a store. It was nighttime. Nobody was around. So I privatized it. I lived in the same basement back then. It was quiet. Anyway, for a few days, so to speak, I ate only vodka. I didn't even have the strength to get food. I only came to my senses when it ran out. Then for a couple more days, I just lay there comatose. I thought I was going to die in that basement. And after that, I realized that alcohol is going to kill me. I just don't want to. Life may be right for you. You don't need to drink. I'm just getting my life back on track. Can I ask you a question? Of course you can ask, but when you get your papers, you'll find out the truth. Like what? You know, whether you want to deal with the people who took your house and hurt your brother. Not to mention you. You know, I've thought about it. I've thought about it a lot. I used to think I needed revenge, but now I've decided it's much better to let it go. I couldn't do much about it then. I probably can't do it now. What's the point in making the same mistakes again? That's what I'm saying. You don't want to go back in there. You should stay with us. I'll talk to our head foreman, Viktor Olgovich. He'll hire you as a tractor driver instead of Stetka. I forgot. You can't always ask him for help. Senya, the black ones. Could you drive a tractor? Yes, I think so. I'd have to study and remember some things, but I'm sure I could. And this Jacob will want me. Well, give him my background. Why would he know? Why don't you be a little less? Tell anyone about it. Just a new man in the village. You don't need to know anything. It's better to start fresh. My parents won't say anything. I guarantee you that. They're not stupid people and they don't talk. By the way, how do you like Svetka? I hear she's tailing you and twirling you around. Oh, I think she just wants to find a new father for her kids. If she knew who I was, she wouldn't have come within a kilometer of me, Alex answered with a smile. That's not what I asked. What do you think of her? No way, to be honest, she's not my type. And in general, I do not want to think about all this yet. Ben smiled enigmatically, looked at him in a sly way, and only said yes. Yes, you don't want to. It is understandable. Alex didn't understand anything, but he didn't ask. Ben has long ago noticed that only on them pathetic. He looks at them with a special tenderness. Maybe at first it was due to gratitude for help, but now in general, it seemed to him that their relationship might become different in the future. Long ago, he himself had been in love with Jenna and had even considered marrying her. But then, having reflected, he decided that he should take a more serious woman as a wife. As his wife, however, years later he began to realize that a spouse should be a friend. But with his own to make friends was not very well. Too much she liked to command. Maybe I really should have made a different choice. What's the point of regretting it now? Especially since his friend lived in the city with her parents. Only spent summers at her grandmother's. What do you understand? Alexander was surprised. Never mind. Soon you'll realize why you did not like Stetka. And on Sunday she went home, and Alex was left alone again. He had a lot to think about. Talking with his brother still did not give him peace. For so many years he had lived with the suspicion that his older brother had abandoned and forgotten him. But it turned out that this was not really the case. He was looking forward to seeing him, although he realized that it might be very soon. Petika could not settle his affairs with work in a second and come to him. The week flew by unnoticed. Alex, for some reason, decided that this weekend Ben would definitely come. But Saturday passed, and she still didn't show up. He didn't dare to call and ask why she didn't come. He figured she was just busy. So she couldn't. On Sunday, Ben came to visit him again. I hope you have good news. Things don't get done that fast in the neighborhood. They get done faster. And here we'll have to wait. I've been looking at the forecast. It's gonna start raining soon. Have you been up on your roof lately? Maybe it needs fixing too. I asked Ben. Yeah, I didn't think of that. You've been helping me. Now it's my turn. Let's take a look. Let's do it. I'm afraid I can't thank you as much as you can thank me. Noted, Alex. That's okay. You'll share the next hair if you catch it. My mother likes it very much. Alex smiled. This option suited him quite well. They climbed on the roof, and it turned out that it was also a little loose. Ben had already gotten it a little. What to do and how to do it. And together, they did it in a couple hours. But you can't take the rain now. Ben said cheerfully as he climbed off the roof. Thank you. I probably figured out how to get up there. Not until it started dripping from the ceiling. No, you can't do that in the country. You have to be prepared for anything. I see you've been gardening. Alex has really been gardening all these days. It was too late to plant anything, but he cleared it of weeds and dug, so that the ground could rest for next year. Yes, there's some, and that's good. Why just dig up the weeds and clear them out? Don't you get it, Alex? It means you've decided to stay here for a long time. See, you're already thinking about the future. I don't know, maybe you are right, Alex smiled. I like the air here so clean, but very quiet. I'm thinking of getting a farm, if there will be such an opportunity, of course. Your passport will be made, you will get a job, money will appear. Then you'll be able to think about a household. Jenna didn't come this weekend. No. What did you miss teasing him about, Alex? No, I was just asking. That's weird. Maybe something happened? I don't know, Alex shrugged. I wanted to call her, but then I thought I shouldn't. Too bad. Let's call her now. Ben took out his phone and dialed her number. She answered almost immediately. She sounded kind of quiet and unsure. Hi, where'd you disappear to? We've been waiting for you. Remember we said we'd go fishing? I remember, Ben, but we can't yet. You wouldn't believe it. I broke my leg. First time in my life. I can't go fishing. I can barely get around the house on crutches. The doctor said it's going to take a month for the bone to heal. Wow, how are you doing? Got someone to take care of you? The news wasn't exactly cheerful. Jenna was living on her own. It must be hard, with all her friends away on vacation. Yeah, I'll be fine. We're still getting food delivered, so I'll be fine. Well, I'll buy the medicine. Why don't I come over? No, that's okay. I can handle it. Jenna didn't like to stress anyone out. It wasn't pride. It was more about being independent and self-sufficient. She really needed help right now, but she didn't dare ask for it. Okay, wait, we'll be there soon, Ben said and hung up. Alex, surprised at him, looked at him. He too looked upset. He felt sorry for Jenna. How did she manage to do that? What are you looking at? Come on, let's go get her. You want to bring her here? Sure. Why stay in town? She'll heal faster here. Or are you against it? No, of course not. I'm all for it. Let's go. I'm not sure if she'll go for it, but let's go. The guys got in Ben's car and drove into town. The drive took about an hour and a half, and when they pulled up to her house, it was already starting to get dark. Alex knocked on the door for a long time. No one opened it. There was some noise from the apartment. Apparently, she really wasn't doing well. And when the girl finally managed to get to the door, the guys were already getting nervous. What a cabbage, Ben said cheerfully. When the door opened, Jenna looked pale and upset, but when she saw her acquaintances, she was incredibly happy. What are you doing here? She was surprised. But I told you to wait. I hope you're packed. Where you are going with us, Alex will take care of you. And I'll make arrangements for Baba Raya to supply you with milk and cottage cheese. The bone will heal faster, and the fresh air is much better. But I can't go. I've got a cat, and where can I take 2 of them? So we'll take them with us. That's it. All objections are dropped. I take it you're on sick leave anyway. Yeah, but I told you, I don't take no for an answer. I'd rather have a team. What do you need to bring? The bank and I will get it together real quick. She looked at them both uncertainly, but then decided not to argue. It's better to have someone around. For her, getting water was sometimes a problem. Her leg hurt like hell. It was stupid to refuse help. No, I'll pack my own things. Your job is to catch and seat their socks and collect their dowry. Potty in the toilet, food in the pantry bowls in the kitchen can still be grabbed. Big bags are in the bottom drawer, in the dresser in the kitchen too. Now that's another conversation. Ben smiled and got down to business. She went to her closet, left her bag, clothes, medicines, and other small things. And in half an hour they got into the car and drove back to the village. When they were almost there, Ben received a call from his wife, who was obviously not happy. Where did you disappear? He spoke on speakerphone, because he was driving, so everyone could hear him. Well, I texted you Jenna broke her leg. We went to pick her up. You're dealing with it again. Sweetie, you're on speakerphone. Stop, please. She was quiet for a second, sighed loudly, then continued in a hurt voice. Okay, when you get back. I've got half an hour to go, and I'll be back soon. If you want to sleep, you can lie down on me. Don't wait up. No, I'm not waiting up. And we need to have a serious talk. Jenna, hi. Thank you and hello to you. Then disconnected. He looked a little pissed off. Apparently he didn't much like it when his wife turned on Commander Scene in public. Clearly she didn't know about the speakerphone, but one still had to be delicate about such matters. We reached the village without incident. Alex laid out a sofa for Zhenya, which stood in the living room, then fed her dinner and put her to bed. She crows for a long time, trying to find a comfortable position, but it didn't work out very well. The next day, however, Jenna slept until almost lunchtime. The country air was clearly doing her good. She woke up rested and refreshed. Alex had already managed to return from the forest with another hare, fed her breakfast, and helped her to get outside, where he had already prepared a cozy place for her to rest. Like a foot. We'll add a little more to it. How did this happen? Would you believe it? It's the dumbest thing you can think of. I fell at home, tripped over a guy, just got out of the bathtub. The floor was wet. So I collapsed like a sack of potatoes. At least I could reach for the phone to call an ambulance. Yes, I guess that's why people need to have a family, to have someone to help in such situations. Alex was thinking out loud. Yes, there are times when loneliness is very unfortunate. I agree. Really, in everything else, it's pretty good. Jenna, can I ask why you divorced your husband? Alex has long wanted to know her story, but did not dare to ask such personal questions. Everything is quite banal. He cheated on me, I found out, I kicked him out. Imagine, he then said that I was to blame for everything, too much work, and not enough time for him. She said with a smile, I never understood why people first get married and then cheat. What is all this for? Sadly stretched Alex. Agreed. It's hard to find a man who understands that loyalty and love were invented for a reason. By the way, what about my brother? He called again. Yeah, we talked a few more times after you left. He's supposed to come visit one of these days. Really? That's great. I agree, I'm looking forward to it too. But I'm a little uncomfortable, to be honest. I feel like I'm a different person and I've changed. There's a lot of things I haven't told him about me, and he doesn't know you were homeless. Well, I haven't told him that directly, and to be honest, I don't really know if I should. There's no point in taking it anyway. The truth will come out sooner or later. I don't know. I think he'll stop respecting me. He'll think I'm weak. I decided not to fight and take the easy way out. The girl looked at the guy in surprise and then smiled. Alex, do you seriously think you took the easy way out? You know, I'm in favor of honesty anyway. If Peter doesn't understand you or judges you, that's his decision. Personally, I think you have to be very strong not to break. Considering everything that has happened in your life, you have nothing to be ashamed of. There may have been moments that are embarrassing to remember, but that's all in the past. They were sitting under an apple tree near the house, its branches creating nice shadows, the windows not hiding from passersby, and Svetlana was just passing by them. When she saw Alex, she didn't even say hello, defiantly turned away and walked past. Don't you two talk anymore? Jenna was surprised. Yes, she lost interest in me, answered Alex. And why? Yes, I just told her what and how. She as soon as she found out the details about me, so instantly I became uninterested in her. But I think that's even better. Why better? Because she became too, how shall I put it, obsessive. Okay, Jenna made a joke. We'll find you unobtrusive. Alex looked into her eyes and asked her not to look for anyone. I'm fine on my own. Okay. All right, whatever you say. She closed her eyes, enjoying the warm wreath and the sunshine. The girl loved this place. This was home. Yesterday, when they'd arrived, she thought leaving home was a very bad idea. But right now she felt so good. Another week passed. Alex and Jenna had time to become friends and get to know each other better. He helped her with everything. He looked after her like a sister. Saturday came and my soul was begging to go fishing. But it was a long walk to the pond. Well, on healthy legs it's not far. But with crutches it was not very convenient to get there. They were just having breakfast when Peter called. Alex, what's the house number? I'm already in your village. And half an hour later, the three of them were sitting at a table drinking tea. You have such great kids," Alex said with a smile, looking at the photo on his brother's phone. Peter had a son and a daughter already quite big, and Alex didn't know them at all. "Well, come to my place and get to know them better." His brother could hardly find where Alex lived, but he came anyway. He still could not fully believe that he had been lied to so shamelessly many years ago. The meeting was very warm and cordial. It would seem that so many years had passed, and the ties of kinship still bind people for centuries. "But I told you I couldn't go anywhere yet. When are the papers due? Maybe I'll come for a visit." "What visit?" "I want to take you to live with me. There's enough room for all of us. I've come by car. I can take you with me right now. And we'll decide about the passport on the spot." Alex thought about it. On the one hand, why not? But on the other hand, he really did not want to go anywhere. At least right now. He was just beginning to come to his senses, just began to live again, not to survive in this village. He was so at peace. And to leave it all behind. No, he certainly wasn't ready for that. "Peter, I want to stay here for now, especially since the papers are about to be ready. Do you understand?" "No, I don't understand." "You're crazy. For so many years I thought you were dead, and I don't want to lose you again. As soon as we confirm that you're alive, we're going to sue those assholes who stole our parents' house. I want to be together. Pata, I understand you, but I don't want revenge. I want a quiet and peaceful life without drama. Understand? Alex, do you hear yourself? It's their fault our mother died. They robbed us of our inheritance. They did such a despicable thing to you. They put me in the hospital for weeks. They threatened my family. You can't let that go." Peter was angry and very belligerent. "Yes, you can. You have no idea what I've been through. And I don't want it all to come back. I insisted on my Alex. So tell me, you're silent and you didn't explain anything on the phone. Where have you been disappearing all this time? Where were you hiding?" Alex thought for a second and then looked at Jenna, who sat quietly in the corner and kept silent. She only nodded at him, and he made up his mind. "All these years, I've been surviving. I've been homeless, lived wherever I could, eating what I could find. I've only just moved here, and I really care about this place. Homeless. Why didn't you find me? Why didn't you find me? How would I find you? You're in New York. There's no way I could drive there. There's no way I could walk there. I had no papers, and no one was going to restore them to me. I only had enough money for food, and not always. So I could work without papers. Even the sweepers' yards didn't always want to hire me. People were afraid of people like me. It was useless to prove to them that I was human and hungry. And if it wasn't for Jenna, I'd still be sitting at the store with my hand out. And I don't think you and I would have ever met." Peter couldn't believe his ears. His brother had been homeless all these years. The man's eyes flashed back to the usual vagrants in his neighborhood, the ones he met every now and then. Some scavenged through garbage cans. Some slept on park benches. Some sat with a drink in the crosswalks. Usually these people were just disgusting. And his brother was the same. It was hard to imagine and realize. Okay, I really don't understand what it's like. But are you really better off here than at my place? I don't know why that is. You know, it's so quiet here. It's like my soul is resting and recharging. I don't want to go to noisy New York. I don't want to go back to running around proving I have a first and last name. I don't want to see the disgust on people's faces. I'm accepted here. I have friends, you know. I feel good here. Maybe later, someday. But not now. I feel like if you don't come with me now, I'm gonna lose you again. Alex, you realize you're my brother. I've raised you since you were little. I was your mother and father sometimes. And then I had to bury you." Peter got emotional and even wept. He did not understand why brother was so insistent on staying in this godforsaken place. "Peter, I love you too, and I'm grateful too. I'm glad you came. Come again, take your wife and children with you. If you're not afraid of introducing them to a bum uncle. Maybe by then I'll have my papers and a job, and I'll be able to live like a human being again. There's humanity here. What kind of life is there? There's nothing here," the older brother resented. "Why nothing? See, I have a house, I have fishing, I have a cat, and there are delicious hares in the forest. And the forest is so big, beautiful. There are berries, mushrooms, pond, fish. Alex didn't have time to finish. His brother interrupted him. Do you hear yourself? What house, what fish, what hares? You're still talking like a homeless man. Because I still am. Homeless, I got nothing. And I want to get back on my feet before I go anywhere. That's what I'm suggesting. That you get it all at once. Peter insisted. Yes, and revenge. I don't want to. I've put it all behind me. Those people aren't worth getting involved with, and I won't. All right, if I forget about revenge, you'll come with me. Will you forget with a sad smile? Asked Alex. I know my brother too well. If he's fixated on something, he won't rest until he gets his way. It's strange that the desire for revenge he has only now, when he found out that his brother is alive. It didn't matter before. What's the matter? For your sake, I'll forget. I'm sorry, but I don't believe you. You know, people need rehab after a shock. Consider my rehab here. Yeah, I'd rather pay for a shrink. I don't want to shrink. I need to figure things out on my own. I'm fine here. Let's not argue anymore. Please come and help me carve the hare. We'll cook, eat, sit down. No, Alex, I didn't come here for a while. Did you tell me about your hair? I thought I'd be there. We'll pack up your stuff and get back on the road. It's a long drive. I drove the car to pick you up. But to be honest, I've got nothing to pack. I've got nothing but an old photograph. And I don't want to go anywhere. If you're in a hurry, go back to your family. I won't take offense. I know you've got your own life. No, you don't understand. I just can't leave you here. So stay. You offered and smiled. Sly, but you know I can't do that either. All right, I'll at least leave you some money. Where's the nearest ATM around here? Alex shrugged and Jenna answered for him. At the bank. In a neighboring town. It's 3 kilometers from here. There's no such thing here. There aren't even any ATMs. How do you live here? The bewilderment on Peter's face made Alex smile. We live like this. Brother, that's how we live. Peter still went to the neighboring town, withdrew some money, and returned to his younger brother. I put some 5,000 bills in front of him and said, don't you dare refuse. I wasn't planning on it. You can't have too much money. I'll pay you back as soon as I can. You don't have to pay anything back. We're brothers. All right, I'll go, but I'll be sure to pick you up next time. You stay here and rebuild. Let me know when you're ready. Peter left, and Alex sat on the porch and looked in the distance, trying to understand if he had made a mistake. From behind, he heard the bounce of crutches. What are you sorry you stayed? She asked, as if reading his thoughts. Alex looked at Jenna sadly, but then smiled. No, I don't. I just think maybe I'm really crazy. What did your brother say? Well, then we're both crazy, the girl replied with a smile. So what? Not everyone has to be normal in this world. Some of them might be a little more authentic. No kidding, I think you're right. It is much easier to recover in the countryside than in a huge metropolis, especially in the capital. Nature itself heals, and silence too. Are you trying to persuade me or yourself? Jokingly asked Alex. I mean, so I was dragged here too, as if to heal. I forgot. I say from my experience here to recover better. Well, I'm not sick. My leg is broken, and your soul is sick, but in its own way. And by the way, I'm glad you don't want revenge. Don't think, it's not stupid. It's the right thing to do. What's the point of running towards a behemoth that is many times stronger than you and can bite a man in half like a straw? Personally, I don't see the point. Maybe you're right. All right, enough grieving. It's time to get busy. You can help. If this is about your bunny, I'm out. No offense. I feel sorry for them. But I can help with the harvesting. Well, then go peel potatoes, and I'll bring meat and just make it, suggested Alex, and got up from the porch. 2 more weeks passed. It was time for Jenna to take off the cast and go back to work. She was already delaying this moment as much as she could. For some reason, she didn't want to go back to the city. In the time she'd spent here, she remembered how much she'd loved this place as a child. And to love it all over again. Quiet, peaceful, beautiful. It's different in the city. She knew for sure that she would miss this village, the house, the people. Her friends would call her from time to time and call her back. They wondered how she could live so long without her favorite TV series, without cafes, without music. She used to love all those things. Ben promised to drive her home in his car when he stopped by their house the night before she left. I did. I'll bring her back, and the wife shall fight again. Yeah, she was just jealous. Now I realize there's no reason to be jealous. Jealous of me. Jenna was surprised. Yeah, somebody told her we'd known each other a long time. Anyway, she'd heard all sorts of things, so she flinched a little. It happens to her. Don't worry about it. What about Alex's ID? Jenna asked. Oh yeah, you've got me all chattered up. That's why I came. Alex stands. Now you are a man with a passport. Ben handed his buddy his documents and smiled broadly. Alex opened the passport, looked carefully at what it said. Then he looked at Ben and said, You were right. He had done well. What were you doubting? Ben was surprised. I did. Jenna, on the other hand, kept telling me he was the only one who could help me. And now I see how right she was. Ben looked at him businesslike and said, It's good to have friends in the police force, isn't it? And by the way, that's not all he had in his hands was a driver's license for the same name, and with a cargo category. Seeing them, Alex got even more excited about the seriousness of what you managed to do. But you have to be smart. But I had to pay $5,000 for them. So you owe me. Alex immediately took the money out of his pocket and gave it back to Eugene. He wanted to jump like a little child from joy when he realized that now he could get a job as a tractor driver. Ben, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's good news. It's just a shame it's leaving. Otherwise, I'd give you a ride in the tractor. But I'll be back. You'll get a ride, she said cheerfully. And the news is really great. Congratulations. Jenna was so happy that the documents were finally ready that she hugged both Ben and Alex. And just at the moment when he plunged into Jenna's cheek, his wife came into the house. Apparently, she came to say goodbye before leaving. Are you settled here normally? Skeptically said Helen to her lips. Baby, it's nothing like that. Just a thank you. Finally got Alexa's passport made. Well, not to her. Zoma took a few steps away from him, smiled at Helen as if apologizing, though she wasn't quite sure why she should. At times, Helen would sneak out to visit, but more to check that her husband wasn't hanging around their house. He'd come in for a few minutes and then leave. I guess she never believed Ben had no interest in another woman. Except now she's doubting it again. All right, let's go home. Enough of this ranting, she said sternly and held out her hand. Ben looked at her glumly, but followed. Sometimes you had to give in to avoid unnecessary conflict in the family. When the door closed behind him, Jenna gave Alex another smile. If I could jump for joy now, I would definitely do it. Nothing, soon the cast will be taken off and we'll jump together. Yes, this cast is annoying as hell. Well, tomorrow I'll go to X-ray and hopefully take it off. Enough already. Why don't you stay? I'm used to you. I'll be bored without you. Unexpectedly, Alex said. Jenna looked at him surprised. No, she didn't really want to go back. But she didn't expect to hear such a thing from him. And who will work for me? Yeah, I understand. I'm sorry, I just liked living with you on crutches. You walk so funny. I don't know how you couldn't learn in a month. And then Jenna was home, 2 weeks back at work. Life was back to normal. The girl worked as a veterinarian for many years. She loved her profession, loved animals, and got along well with them. For the most part, her patients were cats, dogs, rodents, and occasionally parrots. Of course, sometimes she had thoughts of moving to the countryside after spending a month there. It was unusual to return to the boring city life. Even socializing with her friends didn't bring the same pleasure as before. They seemed empty to her now. Too much trouble. And their troubles were empty too. Jenna thought back to herself and realized she'd been the same. I could spend half an hour in a store picking out face cream. And who cared what ingredients it had, what clothes it had? How can you go shopping for 3 hours, choosing a blouse or a bag? But you could, and it seemed natural and normal. This weekend, she planned to go visit Alex. She wanted to see him as a tractor driver. Jenna had called her a couple times to tell her that Alex was getting praise at work. He didn't regret having to do the work for him. In the person of Alex, he found himself a good friend. They often talked, supported each other, and helped each other. It didn't matter to Eugene who he was. The new buddy was in the past. He looked forward without looking back. Jenna really wanted to go to the village, but after the fracture her leg was still sore, and getting to the bus station was problematic. Asking Ben to come and pick her up again was inconvenient. The wife was not happy, so the girl decided to order a cab, especially since the cats could be taken again when she entered the house. Alex was nowhere to be found. Only on the table there was a note. "I already, if you're here, come to us," and even managed to draw a smiley face. She was curious as to what he was doing there, so she went straight there. She tried to remember if it was someone's birthday or some other holiday, but nothing came to mind. Jenna was walking towards Ben's house when suddenly she heard shouting from the neighboring house on their street. Her acquaintance, Wendy, was yelling at her husband, "Martin urgently need to go." "How long can you keep this up? What can I do?" "My Meggiana won't start. By the time you get it started, our Kathy will be dead. She hasn't been born for an hour." The girl couldn't pass by. It was urgent to help the cat give birth. She knew how dangerous it would be if the kitten stayed in her belly, if Kathy was young and couldn't manage on her own. So she immediately decided to offer her help. "Hello, let me help you. I'm a veterinarian." "What do you got there?" she said, peering loudly over the fence. "Oh, baby, you're a godsend. How good of you to come. Come quickly, Kathy, into the barn." The woman forbade it. Jenna opened the gate and went inside, washed her hands in the basin that stood outside by the porch, then followed Wendy into the barn. How surprised she was when it turned out they hadn't named the cat, but their cow. Jenna had never had to deal with such patients before. She suddenly felt a little scared. But then she was able to pull herself together, eventually. She knew the theory. There was no time to wait for another vet anyway. Half an hour later, both women came out of the barn excited. But Happy the calf had been born, albeit with difficulty. The cow was resting after the hard labor, but was already feeling much better. Uncle Martin had been stomping around the barn the whole time. He loved his little box very much and could not watch her suffering. Men and their oddities, which sometimes put you in a stupor. "It's okay," exhaled Jenna with a smile. "Where can I wash my hands?" She looked. She's not presentable at all in hibernating. "How are those guests now?" "Oh, Jenna, thank you very much," gratefully said Uncle Martin and hugged her despite her dirty clothes. "Yes, you're welcome. But you came up with the idea of naming the cow Kathy, too. I thought you were talking about a cat. Hasn't it worked with cows before? You know, we don't have cows in our town. Never had to, but I have to admit, and it's interesting enough. Jenna, do you want to come work for us? We've been without a specialist for 2 months, and he's probably not coming back." Ethan used to work in the village, an old-school doctor. He was the local vet for 30 years, but recently he went into hospital with a heart condition. Took a long time to heal. Rumor had it his son wanted to take him back to the city. When Jenna lived here with the fracture, several times she counseled villagers on how to treat animals. One of the dogs even had a cast on, but she didn't think they were that bad. With the vet, "I'll think about it," she replied. Think about it, think about it. We need a vet, don't we? I mean, every house has cows, pigs, small animals. They need someone to treat them too. Well, I'm going to go now. By the way, do you know what Ben's holiday is today? Why did everyone go to them? We were going to, answered these toms, coming up behind us. But Kathy's having a baby, so we changed our minds. It's like 5 years since he and his wife got married. So they're having a party. What, are you going to go over there looking like that? Jenna looked down at herself and sighed sadly. Her bag contained underwear and a spare t-shirt. But that wouldn't save her now. You're right, I guess I won't go. Where would I go dressed like this? She said with a sad smile. Wait, I can help you with that. Let's go inside, the aunt suggested. Half an hour later, the girl came out of their house in a beautiful red polka dot dress. Wendy had bought it as a gift for her 18-year-old niece, who was due to visit next month. It fit perfectly, and it was a nice dress to wear to the party. And there she stood on the fact that she gathered her hair in the back, in a beautiful bundle, and arranged it herself. Now one would hardly have guessed that only half an hour ago Jenna had delivered their fly. But all right, you're ready now, have a nice walk. And tell them we'll be gone, please. I can't leave Kathy right now. What if she needs something? By the time Jenna reached her old friend's house, the party was in full swing. The tables were set. There was elk, meat on the grill, people were hustling and having fun, as best they could. She did not immediately manage to find Zhenya with her eyes. She came closer and congratulated him on his anniversary. Helen appeared right next to her. Jenna congratulated her and even hugged her a little. Congratulations. Love and be happy. Yes, we will. You bet we will. Helen replied with a smile and stroked her belly. Come on, you can be congratulated on that too. Yes, said Ben happily. We're going to have a baby. What a joy. Congratulations. Take good health. Helen, take care of yourself. Jenna was so genuinely happy that Helen stood back a bit. Alex came from behind and gave Jenna a brotherly pat on the shoulder. Admittedly, he went a little overboard, and she squatted a little from the weight of his arm. Hey, what's up? Hey, forgot I was a girl. Sorry, I didn't realize you were a girl, he joked. Hey, you're early today. There was another bus on the route. Alex looked a bit different, more confident or something. Like he was in his place now, not lost in the woods like before. And that change was good for him. You wouldn't believe it. I took a cab today. That's awesome. Good for you for driving without an adventure. It's okay. By the way, Wendy and Martin aren't coming. Their cow had a baby. They're staying with her. They told me to tell her. Oh, thank God. Wendy was so worried about her, and there's no doctor. And her first labor was difficult. But she's fine now. Jenna smiled. Alex looked at her suspiciously and asked, Did you deliver a cow? How did you guess? And how would you know that she gave birth if you just arrived? And you look pretty happy about it. Well, maybe it helped her, but just a little bit. How's your work going? Do you like it? By the way, you promised me a ride on the tractor. I didn't forget. But not today. Maybe tomorrow, okay. Jenna made me drink a shot of it on the elevator on a dare. I can't drive now. You don't drink. I don't drink. But I had a bet. What did you bet? Oh, never mind. He didn't give me any manly nonsense. Oh yeah, Ben can't argue with him at all. I've been there. Well, I'd love to have a little something to drink too. I've never delivered a cow before. I'm still shaking inside. Alex put his arm forward, suggesting her to take him under her elbow, and gallantly said, Well, let's go. Let's find you something tasty. The woman opened her eyes, feeling the rays of the sun on her cheek. A couple of seconds passed, and she remembered what had happened yesterday. Turning around, she saw Alex sleeping next to her. Oh, shit, she thought to herself. No, she wasn't sorry, she just didn't know what to do next. Yesterday at Ben and Helen's party, they had found a really delicious white homemade wine. Brought by one of the guests, it tasted like a capote. But it was much stronger than she thought it would be at first read easy, so she didn't notice how she drank almost the whole bottle. Alex had been around the whole time. He could have fun without alcohol. That shot on the elevator had long since weathered, but he was always somewhere nearby and kept an eye on her to make sure the girl didn't do anything stupid. The local men were paying attention to her about that red dress, which behaved rather unpredictably in the wind. It made her look very feminine, and a little bit of playfulness surrounded Jenna's head, and she was finally able to realize what she had wanted for a long time. As they danced another dance, she looked at Alex and suddenly said, You're cute. Strange how I hadn't noticed that before. I don't know, I just haven't been paying attention. And you like me. He answered quietly and kissed her softly on the lips. And then everything was so fast that they didn't even realize how they ended up in the same bed at home. And now it was morning. Thinking back to last night, Jenna smiled. She didn't notice that Alex was already awake and was quietly watching her. Good morning. The girl flinched at the sound of his voice and turned around. Good, she replied with a smile. She had so many questions in her mind. She wanted to know what he was thinking. but there was nothing to say, as if frozen, looking into his eyes. "Do you want to ride a tractor?" Suddenly Alex offered. Such childish delight on her face he had not seen, even when they were fishing. "Can I be happy?" exclaimed Jenna. "Yes, of course, we can get ready." She jumped out of bed faster than a cat and went looking for some clothes. She remembered that her old shorts should be in the dresser, and immediately started rummaging through it. "Aha," thought to myself, "Alex is my rag." Jenna never left the village again. She stayed with Alex in her grandmother's old house. They decided to rent an apartment in the city. She got a job as a veterinarian, and a year later they got married. Ben had a son. They named him Tom. Helen calmed down and stopped being jealous. When she found out that Jenna and Alex were now in love and they became family friends, Peter 6 months later came to visit again, this time with his whole family. When he saw that his brother was fine and had found his happiness, he too calmed down and stopped urging him to move to New York. He realized that Alex had finally found his place in life. That's how people who were considered abnormal found each other and created a strong family, despite the gossip and difficulties of life. They were able to find their happiness in each other's arms and rejoiced in it every new day.
Subscribe and click the bell.
Camille had already been living in the orphanage for more than 6 months. The 13-year-old girl kept herself apart all this time. She did not want to come into contact with her peers and classmates. For this, she was nicknamed Bun. Camille was not at all offended by this offensive nickname, as she realized that it was her own fault that now she is called such a girl. When she got to the orphanage, she kept thinking, was it right that she volunteered to live in this institution? After all, Camille told the class teacher about her life, and the teacher sounded the alarm. And all was that Camille had divided her life into 2 parts. Until the age of 11, the girl grew up a happy child. She was cherished by her mom, and Dad tried his best they could to buy fashionable things. In general, the parents wanted their daughter to not need anything. And then something happened, and everything went wrong. Initially, the parents between themselves began to fight often, after which the girl's mother often cried. Then he stopped coming home. The father slept over. Camille realized that there was an unhealthy atmosphere in the house, and it would not end well. However, Camille couldn't understand why her parents were fighting, and so she asked her mother, "Why do you and her father fight so often? Do you really want to know?" "I do. I want us to live like we used to, happily and as a family. And I don't want you to cry." "Then go and ask your father why we fight with him." The girl nodded to her mother in response, and when her father came, she turned to him with the same question. The father looked at his daughter carefully, and then called her back to the children's room and put her on a chair, and sat opposite him. The man nervously ran his palm through his hair and then said, "Daughter, you are not so small, and some things should understand. Anyway, I've fallen out of love with your mother, and I want to divorce her. I wanted to talk to you about it earlier, but I didn't dare. Divorcing my mom won't affect our relationship. I just won't live here, but I'll visit you." "Dad, is there another woman in your life?" "That's a serious question. I'll be honest with you. You're right. I have a woman I love and want to live with. You've made your point. I don't want to talk to you anymore," roughly said the girl and rushed to the bathroom, where she gave vent to tears. Now Camille understood her mother, who had been crying a lot lately. After this conversation with her father, a few days passed, and the man soon packed his things and left their family. Camille became withdrawn after Papa's departure. She was incredibly hurt that her father had betrayed her and her mom for another woman. And the girl's mother, after she was abandoned by her husband, just sobbed and cursed her fate. At first, Camille's father visited her, coming once a week to school after lessons. However, Camille did not talk to him and tried to get away from her father as soon as possible. This continued for a month, and the man began to come to school less and less often. Meanwhile, The girl's mother, in order to somehow survive the betrayal, began to impose on strong drinks. Even not perfectly understood that the mother degenerates every day. And when once again the father appeared at school, the girl told him everything and asked him to talk to her mother. The man looked sadly at his daughter and said that he would not do this. And then he added, "Your mom is a grown woman and should understand what she is doing. And I also want to say that now I will rarely visit you. You don't spoil me much with your visits anyway. There's a reason for that. I have a woman I live with who's expecting a baby in the near future, and now I'm gonna have a lot on my mind. You must realize that a baby needs a lot of attention." That's a great thing to say. You're telling your own daughter. So I don't want to be taken care of. Get out then, and you cannot appear in my life at all. Barely holding back her sobs, the girl said, "I understand that you are offended at the moment. Be patient a little. As soon as the baby is born and grows up, I will visit you more often. You should be happy because you'll have a sister I'll introduce you to. I've told you everything. Go away. And don't show up with anyone. I don't want to meet anyone. I hate you and despise you," the girl said quickly and hurried home. Camille couldn't wait to cry, but she didn't want to do it in front of her father. As soon as Camille got home, she rushed to her room and burst into tears. She wanted her mother to be there to tell her about her conversation with her father. However, when her mother came home drunk, the girl lost all desire to tell her mother anything. A few days passed. Camille came home and was very surprised to find the front door unlocked. Camille remembered exactly that she had closed the door. The girl entered the room and saw that her mother was sitting in the kitchen with tea and a cat on the table. Camille involuntarily wrinkled her nose and said to Mama, "Are you drinking again? For some reason, it wasn't at work that I got fired. Can you imagine, my daughter? Such a valuable employee was kicked out of the company. What are we going to do now? I'll look for a new job. Don't worry, everything will be fine. It's all your father's fault. He left us to our fate." Camille hoped her mother would go to look for a new job the next day, but she didn't. The girl's mother drank heavily for almost a week while she had money. When the finances ran out, she started selling gold jewelry first, and then she started selling things. This went on for some time. Camille tried her best to convince her mother to stop drinking, but she, being drunk, drove away her daughter. Camille realized that soon they would not be able to buy bread. The girl did not know what to do. Camille began to feel hungry all the time, as her mother rarely cooked at home, and lately her mother began to leave in the evening and come back in the morning and again drunk. That's when Camille decided to talk to Emily's class teacher. She told the teacher about her life. The teacher listened attentively to the school drill and then said to the girl, "You can't live like this. I will try to talk to your mom, but I am afraid it will be a waste of time. The only thing I can offer you is to live in an orphanage, where you will be properly taken care of. Maybe the termination of parental rights will make your mom reconsider her views on life, and she will give up her addiction. And don't get me wrong that after your story I will have to contact the guardianship authorities anyway, because I have to respond to the fact that my student does not finish her meals and often stays home alone at night." The very next day, Emily tried to talk to Camille's mother, but the conversation did not work, as the landlady was in an inadequate state. The teacher made another attempt 2 days later, but the situation was repeated. And then the teacher detained the girl after lessons and told her it was useless to talk to your mom. "I ask you not to take offense at me, but I'm appealing to the guardianship authorities. I just don't have a way out. I'm not offended. I've been thinking about your words for a long time, and it seems to me that I would be much better off in an orphanage now. You see, I'm just afraid that I'll go down a crooked path and start stealing from stores so that I won't feel hungry." Good for you for thinking that way. Don't despair. Maybe when you get to the orphanage, your mom will realize that she might lose her own daughter. And soon Camille showed up at the orphanage. Now she was sitting there thinking about her mother and whether it was right for her to want to live in this institution. Camille was distracted from her thoughts by a woman's voice that said, "Sitting alone again as your peers rampage outside." The girl turned around and looked at the woman with a smile. It was Evelyn, the cleaning lady. Camille had become friends with her. A month after coming here, all the children at the orphanage thought Evelyn was a woman. Camille had a different opinion of the janitor. She liked it when the janitor affectionately called her by her first name and asked her how her day was going. Evelyn walked over to the girl and sat down next to her. The older woman already knew Camille's story. For what reasons the child had ended up in the orphanage, the cleaning lady herself did not understand what made her feel special toward this withdrawn girl. And now, seeing the pensive Camille, she quietly turned to her. What she was dreaming about at the moment. Honestly, about my mom in my life. Tell me if it's not a secret. I've been waiting a long time for my mom to come and take me away from here. But she never even visited me once. And now I was wondering if I was right to want to live in an orphanage. And now I realize that I was right. I don't need the pits at all. And I have an aversion to her. I feel like pretty soon I'm just gonna hate her. You can't say that about your own mother. You know, I grew up in an orphanage too. My mom gave me up when I was a baby. And at first, I had the same thoughts as you. But as I'd grown up, I've changed my mind drastically. Tell me why. Interested? Camille asked. I'll try to explain it to you with my own example. As soon as I left the orphanage, I entered medical school. When I graduated, I met a young man named Roman. This guy started courting me, and soon we both realized that we loved each other. Soon we had a wedding with him. And then we had our firstborn son, who was named Constantine. And now I come to the most important part. Why did I stop hating my mother? It's because with my husband I lived in peace and harmony. We had a wonderful son. You see, I've been a happy woman all these years. And now you just imagine that if my mother had not given birth to me, I would not have experienced any of this, because I would not be in this world. And that's why I am grateful to my mother for giving me life. And let my mother left me in the hospital, but I do not blame her, because it is quite possible that she had good reasons for it. But you know my story, don't you? My mom's only good reason was to drink hard liquor. Your mom slipped up. She's a weak person. Not everyone can be a strong person. Don't just hate her. Believe that you'll grow up. You'll have a happy life. And you will thank your mom more than once for living in this world. Smiling, said the old woman. I don't know. Maybe you are right about that. And tell me, why do you work as a cleaner if you have a nursing education? That's a separate story. At one time I worked as a nurse in a children's clinic. When the years passed, I retired, but continued to work. But soon the management told me that it was necessary to give way to young staff. I had to quit. I did not regret it, as I had a loving husband with me. And my son at that time got married and left for another city. And after I was retired and sitting at home, my husband passed away a year later. And why did you go back to work after that? I don't understand. Sitting alone in four walls is not a particularly pleasant occupation. You're so young, you wouldn't realize it. I just started to feel lonely. And then my son took out a mortgage to buy an apartment. He needed help with the money. So I decided that I'd rather work than just stay at home beating around the bush. And now I've been working here for 4 years, and I've never regretted it. Why don't the children from the orphanage treat you well? I think that this is a question you should ask your peers, not me, Evelyn said with a smile. And then she added, and to find out the answers of boys and girls, you need to talk to them, not stay away from them. Years of life went by. Everything was also kept aloof from peers. Both the boys and the orphanage staff were used to it by now, except that Evelyn was dissatisfied with the fact that Camille was not a sociable child and often talked to the girl about it. And the girl, in turn, in response, only kept silent. Time flew by. And now Camille has already turned 18 years old. It was time for the girl to start living on her own. And the day before Camille had to leave the orphanage, she was approached by a cleaning lady who said, "You're starting a new epoch in your life. You must be careful, because living on your own, you can make a lot of mistakes. I know that the state gave you a one-room apartment somewhere in the periphery, but that's okay. The main thing is that you have your own corner. The only place you've been allocated is there. There's no furniture. I already thought of that. I'll buy you a kitchen table with 4 stools. It'll be a housewarming gift. A bed and a dresser. I'll give them from my son's room. He doesn't need this furniture, but it'll be good for you. I'll give you some of the kitchen utensils. Of course, you've got to give me something to eat. When I decide to visit you, if you don't mind, I'll always be glad to have you here. You've been so supportive while I've been here. I'll be eternally grateful. Oh, don't give me that big talk. And what kind of gratitude is there to be thankful for? Why don't you tell me what you're gonna do? How are you gonna get out of here? I want to be an announcer, and I'm gonna try to get into college. And of course, I'll look for part-time work in the evenings to make a living. And if you don't get in, believe me, it happens a lot. I'll get a job, and in a year I'll try again. And soon Camille moved into a studio apartment. She quickly got settled in and immediately got to know her neighbor. It was a middle-aged woman whose name was Wendy. Soon Camille tried to enter the institute, but disappointment awaited her. The girl missed a few points. After she found out that she was unlucky with the enrollment, she came home in a bad mood. She wanted to cry with grief. Camille only sat down on the bed as she received a call on her cell phone from Evelyn, who asked how things were going. The girl tried not to cry and mouthed, "I didn't get in, and I had so much faith in my abilities." That says what? That you shouldn't be overconfident. Just write that you're going to make your beautiful face raw and put it aside for the moment. Otherwise, I'll scold you like a little girl who went to the wrong potty. The old woman said sternly, "Do you know how to cheer up?" Laughing, the girl said, "That's great. What are your plans now?" "Well, I'm going to look for a job. I need finances to live on." A few days later, the girl got a job in a flower pavilion. The manager at first worked together with Camille, helping her to learn the art of how to beautifully design a bouquet. And after a couple of weeks, the director of the pavilion, Jenna, approved the girl's actions and said that now she could work independently. Camille was happy because she was praised by the director. And so the first day came when Camille went out to work at the pavilion. One girl was very worried, but the first shift went out without any misunderstandings. And on the second day, Camille went to work without worrying that she would not be able to fulfill her duties. The first month flew by as Camille worked in the flower pavilion. The girl enjoyed going to work. One day, a young man came to see her and immediately complimented Camille on her good looks. Camille often heard such words from representatives of the stronger sex and calmly treated them. But this young man said the compliment in a special way, and the girl looked at him with interest. Meanwhile, the guy said, "Can I buy a bouquet of flowers that will reflect your beauty?" Camille, hearing this, laughed and handed the visitor a bouquet of decorative daisies. The young man, seeing the flowers, also laughed and said, "You obviously underestimate yourself. And to be honest, I need the bouquet to give to my friend's girlfriend. It's her birthday today." Camille looked around at the ready bouquets and then chose gladioli. She handed the flowers to the young man and said that such a bouquet should be to the girl's taste. The guy took the mustache and paid and then asked permission to see Camille off in the evening. Camille was not ready for this and therefore refused. Soon the visitor left. The girl had worked her shift and was getting ready to close the pavilion when she saw again the guy who had complimented her today. She looked questioningly at the young man and asked him if he needed another bouquet. "No flowers today. I just want to see you off. But I already refused your request." "All right. Then sell me a bouquet of white roses." Camille complied with the visitor's request, and he took the flowers and put them on the counter, saying that the roses were bought for her. And after that, the guy left the pavilion. The girl was surprised by the stranger's behavior, and at that moment thought that the young man was strange. After this incident, a couple of days passed, and Camille already closed the pavilion and was going to go home. Suddenly, she was called by a lover of daisies. "Would you give me a couple of minutes?" Camille looked at the stranger and recognized him as the man who had recently given her roses. The young man stood near the foreign car and elbowed her. The girl asked what the guy wanted, and the one after her words came up to her and answered that he could not wait to get acquainted with the beauty. Camille did not know how to act in this situation and therefore said, "Let's not do this, and I disgust you." The young man said in surprise, "I didn't say that. I'm just not used to it. Getting acquainted like that. You're putting a price on yourself," sarcastically said the stranger. And then he added, "How long do you have to be groomed to tell me your name?" "All right, you're on. My name is Camille. Now we're talking. And my name is Stephen. Let's get you a ride in the car." "If you want a ride, I'm not getting in the car on foot." Stephen nodded and followed the girl. The young man told different anecdotes about Camille laughed. The girl noted to herself that the new acquaintance was an excellent conversationalist and easy to communicate with, and soon the couple approached Camille's house. Camille thanked the guy for seeing her off, but Stephen stopped her and asked for permission to take a leisurely walk with her again tomorrow. The girl, after some thought, agreed. When she got home, Camille involuntarily thought about the man. It suddenly seemed to her that perhaps this man was her soulmate, and then she pushed these thoughts away from her, realizing that she did not know Stephen at all to allow such thoughts. All the following week, the young man met the girl from work almost every day. From him, she learned that he was 24 years old and studying at the institute. The guy also said that he lived on his own in a 2-room apartment. Stephen said that his father is engaged in business and his mother is a housewife. When Camille heard all this, she said with a smile, "You're just like a major." "That's right. I think I am, too, and it doesn't offend me. Why did I tell you all about me? You haven't told me anything about your own person. I'm also interested to know who your parents are, why you work in a flower pavilion and not study." Camille looked at the guy and said that she was a pupil of an orphanage. She did not tell him the reason why she had gotten there. She was uncomfortable to admit that her mom consumed strong drinks. Stephen, when he heard that Camille was from the orphanage, looked at her in a strange way. This look was noticed by the girl, and she asked what was wrong. The guy at the same moment smiled welcomingly and said that everything was fine, and then invited the interlocutor to come to visit him. Camille refused. It seemed to her that it was too early to be alone with Stephen. The young man, when he heard that Camille did not want to visit, said reproachfully, "And I thought we trusted each other, but it turned out to be completely different. I get the feeling you think I'm a monster." "You're wrong. You're a nice guy, but I'd rather get some fresh air than sit in an apartment. But it's better to get some fresh air than to sit in an apartment. You and I have plenty of time. Take me up on my offer. By the way, I have a large soap collection. I know my hobby sounds weird, but I collect soap." "Interesting," with a smile said a girl and thought, "and why not really come to visit? Well, at least for an hour." The young man, seeing the doubts of the interlocutor, immediately said, "I'll get you home safe and sound, and you will choose the soap you like. You can even have several and take it from me as president." The girl looked at Stephen and agreed. The couple got into the car and the car started. Camille was riding in a foreign car for the first time. She was inspecting the interior. The young man was discreetly observing it. When the girl turned her attention to the road, the guy asked if she liked the car. Camille enthusiastically concluded that the car was wonderful. She added that it must be very expensive. Stephen voiced the cost, and the interlocutor, ouch, nodded. The driver, seeing her reaction, laughed. Soon the couple was already in Stephen's apartment. The girl immediately assessed the atmosphere and softly mumbled that everything here is arranged with taste. The young man smiled and replied that it was the merit of his mother. And then the owner of the apartment offered the guests to drink a glass of sparkling wine. But Camille flatly refused. Then Stephen opened the bar and took out a bottle of liquor from there. He dug it out and splashed the liquid into the shot glasses with the words, "I bought it when I suggested you buy it from Aristov. This drink is not quoted in the orphanage. You must be used to Belenka." The girl from these words of the guy shuddered as from a blow, and sharply said that she does not use strong drinks at all, and then said that if he once again allowed himself to talk to her in this way, then their communication on this note stops. The guy smiled in response and asked his guest to relax, promising that he would not allow himself to do that again. And then Stephen poured himself a strong drink and emptied the glass. The girl, seeing this, involuntarily wrinkled her nose. Then she asked to see the soap collection. The owner of the apartment cordially agreed to fulfill Camille's request and invited her into the bathroom, where the original shelf on the entire wall was pierced, on which were arranged pieces of soap. The girl began to look at the collection with curiosity. Meanwhile, the young man had left the bathroom and had another 100 grams of hard liquor before returning to his visit. Stephen watched as Camille stood on tiptoe and took out first one bar of soap, which she brought to her nose and inhaled the aroma, and then the next. The man felt at that moment a desire to possess this girl right now at this moment enveloped him, and he wrapped his arms around Camille and his hands and turns her to face him, and then starts to tear off the girl's blouse. Camille screamed out loudly for him to leave her alone. However, the guy picked up the guest in his arms and carried her to the couch. Camille was already well aware of what the owner of the apartment was going to do. And then she screamed, "Stop, please. I don't want it to happen like this. After all, I haven't been intimate with a man once before. Not to build for myself, not to cross the road from the orphanage. And they've been doing it there since they were 12. Just be a decent girl now, and we'll give each other pleasure." Camille tried to push the young man away, but the forces were unequal, and after a while Stephen lay on his back and breathed often. And the girl, tucking her legs under her belly, barely audible, was crying. The owner of the apartment, literally after a few minutes from breathing, said, "And you did not deceive me. It turned out, in fact, pious diva, but you pass. You liked it too, didn't you? But tell me the truth. I will now rest, and we can continue." After these words, the girl jumped to her feet and ran to the kitchen, where she grabbed a knife. As soon as Stephen began to approach her, she screamed exhaustedly that she would take her own life if he came near her. The landlord snorted and calmly replied, "I don't need to touch you. I've had mine. Now you can go to all four sides. By the way, you can choose a few bars of soap from the collection. That's your pleasure fee. If you want to meet me, you'll find my address here. Oh, and one more thing. Don't go to the police because my father has connections there. You're only hurting yourself by doing this." The girl looked at the guy with hatred and quickly got dressed, then ran out of the apartment. Camille knew that it was a long way for her to get home, and it would be better to take transportation. But she felt like people knew what had just happened and were looking at her with judgment. So Camille decided that she would get home on her own. Soon the girl was already in the apartment, where she immediately rushed into the bathroom. She wanted to wash herself off with the touch of Stephen's hands. Camille rubbed her body with exasperation, silent. Then Camille sank to the bottom of the tub and sobbed bitterly. The next day, Camille asked the director of the flower pavilion for a day off. The girl told the supervisor that she felt disgusting. The supervisor advised her to call a doctor and said she would work by herself for a few days, while Camille is not feeling well. The girl has been manifesting at home for several days. She did not answer her neighbors' calls, and also the cleaner of the orphanage. Camille just wanted to be at home for a while and hoped that she would succeed. However, Evelyn thought quite differently, who was concerned that the ward was not answering her calls, and the elderly woman initially went to the girl's workplace, and after finding out why Camille was absent from the pavilion, she had already gone to her home. The elderly woman rang the doorbell for a long time, and then, realizing she wouldn't get that one opened, said loudly, "I know you're home. If you don't open the door, I'll break it down. And you know very well that I will. Camille, knowing the temper of the cleaning lady, I realized that Evelyn would do as the girl said, opened the door and saw the worried face, the elderly woman. Camille smiled tiredly and invited the guest to pass. Evelyn looked at the wards and sternly asked what had happened. Camille did not want to tell the cleaning lady anything, and so she lied to her that she had quarreled with a young man. The guests looked at the girl with amazement and muttered, "That's the guy you're killing for. The one you just met. I don't understand you. Did you fall in love so quickly? Let's go to the kitchen and have a cup of tea, and you can tell me all about it." Camille realized that Evelyn would have to lie, so she quickly made up stories. She told the elderly woman that she had quarreled with the young man because he had forbidden her to work. The guest, hearing the explanation, only laughed and remained silent. "That's a silly reason for a quarrel. You should have told your boyfriend that you need something to live on. And if he's going to support you, let him do it. I'm not gonna tell him anything. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Maybe I could have a mother-son talk with him." "No way. Better tell me how things are going at the orphanage." The landlady spoke, trying to distract Evelyn from the dangerous topic. Time moved slowly. Camille went to work and then went straight home. Stephen did not appear in her life. What was the girl glad of? She wanted to cut this man out of her life completely and never think of him. So Camille got up in the morning as usual. She had to go to work. As Camille felt sick, she rushed to the restroom, where she immediately threw up. The girl was puzzled as to what had happened to her, but immediately she tried to put all thoughts about her health aside as she had to get ready for work. Camille hoped that the nausea would go away during the day, but it did not. The young woman came home irritated after a day of work. She was depressed about her own physical condition and did not even eat dinner that day. She went to bed early. The next day, the same thing happened again. The girl felt nauseous all the time. After work, she went to the store to buy milk, which she loved very much and allowed herself to buy on rare occasions. Camille went to the counter and wanted to take a bottle. She realized that if she took even a sip of milk, she would immediately vomit. Camille did not buy anything and went home. When she got home, the girl sat down on the bed. The doorbell rang. Camille opened it and saw a neighbor who was holding fried pies on a plate. The woman unceremoniously entered the apartment and spoke. "I want to treat you to some baked goods. I happened to buy fuel milk today." "Oh, don't even remind me of milk. It makes me sick at one word," said the girl, looking at her saliva. "I don't understand you. You've always loved milk, and now you're sick of it. I've been sick of it since yesterday. I thought it would go away today, but it didn't. How's your stool?" "It's fine. I'm walking. It's not poisoning. You know, sweetheart, all your symptoms indicate that you're pregnant. I have a pretty good idea who the father of this baby is. I've seen your young man out the window a few times with you, only now he's gone missing. If I were you, I'd go to the drugstore and get a test. I'm not a gynecologist, but trust me, you're definitely in the right place. Don't be silly. I won't drink tea because I'm tired at work. I'm sleepy." With a slightly noticeable irritation, muttered the landlady of the apartment, who at this minute wanted Wendy to go to her room. The neighbor, hearing that she was being beaten about missing, resentfully pressed her lips together and quickly left. As soon as the woman left the apartment, Camille began to pack quickly. She only wanted to buy a pregnancy test after Wendy's words. The girl was able to allow the thought that she could have gotten pregnant by the rascal. Camille bought the test and persevered with the appropriate procedure. The girl was very worried. She absolutely did not want to give birth to a child from Stephen, who had done such a thing to her. When the test showed positive results, Camille squatted down and cried desperately. The young woman did not know what to do in this situation. The first thing that came to mind was to talk to Evelyn and tell her everything honestly. Camille received a call from the cleaning lady and asked her to come to visit her tomorrow. The elderly woman readily agreed and asked what to take for tea. Camille replied that there was no need to bring any guests, since she had Krieger. Evelyn wanted to ask her mentee something else, but she said that the whole conversation would take place tomorrow. The next day in the evening, the old woman was already sitting at Camille's house. The landlady, with her head down, told how she had visited Stephen and how it had all ended. Evelyn listened attentively to Camille and asked what she was going to do. Camille tearfully said she wanted to terminate the pregnancy. When the guest heard this, she said softly, "And you are sure of your decision?" Very often it happens that after such procedures women can no longer have children. But we have modern medicine, and I have nothing to fear. Just understand, if I give birth to this child, this baby will remind me all the time what he did. I am afraid that I hate this child. I'm also afraid that the child will inherit the father's genes and be just as much of a rascal in life. Wait, this is where it all comes together. Is that too much to be afraid of? Let me get this straight. What about medicine? You know, there's a saying that goes, there's a silver lining. That's the case with you. Let's move on. That the child will resemble his father, but it won't. As soon as you put the baby to the breast to feed, you'll realize that this baby is yours alone. Now, about genes. What do genes have to do with it? You're gonna raise the baby. What you put into it is what you'll reap. I'm not in any way trying to talk you into keeping the baby. I'm just trying to make you realize that you have to make these decisions consciously, not in haste, when emotions are running high. And that's what you're going through right now. My advice to you is to go to a gynecologist and make sure that you are pregnant, since tests can also give wrong results. If the pregnancy is confirmed, then check with the doctor until what term you can think about whether to keep the baby or not. And only after that, make a decision. After a while, Camille had already been to the women's clinic and knew for sure that she was in an interesting position. The young woman had contradictory feelings. On the one hand, she was pleased that life had begun inside her. But on the other hand, when she thought of Stephen, she felt disgusted with the child. Camille procrastinated for a long time and then made the choice that she would give birth to this baby, and it would be a joy in her life. The young woman was informed about her decision by the orphanage worker, who was happy to hear the news and immediately said that she would give the stroller as a gift as a grandmother. After Evelyn learned that the ward would give birth, she came to visit her and from the threshold said that it was necessary to have a serious talk. Camille was surprised at this and invited the elderly woman into the guest room and sat down and looked at the landlady carefully and only then spoke. Having a baby is good, but you need to think about the financial side. You have to persuade your manager to make you an official salesperson. That way you'll get an allowance. And if she refuses, find a way to get the director of the flower pavilion to agree. You'll need that money to live on in the future. You know, I don't just give advice. After all, I've lived most of my life already. And please don't put off this conversation with your supervisor until later. Camille, after this conversation with Evelyn, turned to her supervisor. Jenna promised to think about it. And now a month has passed since that conversation, and the supervisor has remained silent on the subject. Camille again talked to her supervisor about official employment. Jenna promised that she would do it in a week. However, a month passed, but the supervisor did not lift a finger on the matter. And when Camille tried to talk about it again, the supervisor pointed to the young woman's slightly bulging belly and said, "Do you want me to pay you benefits? But that's not going to happen. Why would I transfer my money to nowhere?" "You don't say." "What do you mean, nowhere? This money will be a great help to us. As soon as the baby's old enough, I'm going back to work for you." My answer to you: no, you work one more week and then I'm firing you. You're a good girl. Yeah, she's helping the unmarried. And I'm not going to. Camille was stunned by Jenna's answer. Camille seemed to have developed a good relationship with her supervisor. After all, when the supervisor asked to stay longer after the workday, the girl willingly complied with her request. And now that Camille had been refused, She was extremely offended that she had received such a reward for all her hard work. Camille recounted this conversation with the director of Evelyn's Flower Pavilion. The elderly woman was outraged after hearing the news. She wanted to go and talk to Jenna herself and tell the manager that she was acting illegally. That's one thing. And secondly, decent people don't do that. Camille talked the old lady out of it. She said, "You won't get anything out of it. I worked unofficially, and that says it all. It's my own fault for not having thought of this earlier, to formalize an employment contract." Soon Camille was out of work. The young woman was handed as she realized that the salary she received after she stopped working in the Flower Pavilion would not be enough for a long time. So Camille began to pound various structures in order to find some kind of work before the payment of maternity benefits. However, she was denied everywhere, and seeing that she is in an interesting position, and still the young woman found a job. True, it paid a pittance. The girl had to hand out advertising booklets on the street. Camille realized that she earns a pittance here, but at the moment she was happy about it. Time flew by, and now the young woman gave birth to a baby girl, whom she named Vanessa. Camille fondly felt the little bundle and mentally thanked the cleaning lady, who had made her realize that the decision should be made without any violent thoughts. Camille realized that it was only thanks to that conversation with the technician that she had kept the baby under her heart. And now that baby was born from the maternity ward. Camille was greeted by Evelyn. The elderly woman accepted the small package from the nurse's hands and suddenly cried. Camille was puzzled why the cleaning lady was crying now and asked her about it. "You should be happy. Are you crying? Why?" "I'm glad you made the right decision at the right time. And now I answer to my granddaughter." Time has slowly moved on. Camille enjoyed learning the role of a mother. She was busy practicing with her daughter. All the motherly duties she lovingly performed. And even when Vanessa switched from day to night, it didn't work for the young woman to have to adjust to a child. It had been a month since Camille had become a mom. And at this point, Camille clearly realized that the allowance was completely inadequate for living. Her daughter needed to buy formula, which cost a lot of money, and she also had to buy shipping, oils, baby soap, and other baby products for the baby. The young woman was at a loss, and it was the first time she had not paid her utility bill. Another 2 months passed. Camille lost weight during this time, as she denied herself food, only to be fed. Camille's daughter helped Evelyn, but only in small amounts. The elderly woman saw perfectly well how difficult it was for her ward, and one day a conversation took place between the cleaning lady and Camille. Camille said to the technician in despair, "I don't know what to do. I was already thinking of putting my daughter in an orphanage for a while and visiting her there. And as soon as she's a little older, I'll take her out of there and get a job in the meantime. That's the stupidest decision I've ever heard. If you do that, you'll lose Vanessa forever. You'd have to give up your parental rights if you did that. Do you even think about what you're saying? I don't know how to make ends meet." With tears in her eyes, said the girl, and immediately added, "Other children at this age have cribs. My daughter still sleeps in the stroller you gave us. The crib is not the most important thing. I'll try to give you a little more money. I don't feel comfortable accepting finances from you anymore. I don't know when I'll be able to pay you back. I'd like to get a job, and then everything will change." After this conversation, about 2 weeks passed, and Evelyn came to visit Camille. The old woman went into the kitchen and put a box with a long cake on the table. The landlady looked at her guest with bewilderment and asked what kind of celebration. The cleaning lady smiled and said, "Celebrating my dismissal from work. I've become too old to carry big buckets of water, and now I've decided to retire. And the salary at the orphanage is tiny. I'll be with Vanessa from now on. And you're trying to get a job, but you still need to help your son. I haven't forgotten about that. They'll cut back on their rations. There's no other option. Although there is one other option, which is to go to the father, establish paternity with DNA, and then demand child support from him. Don't ever say that to me again. I'll never go to what? This is my child and mine alone. Consider me. Vanessa started from the wind in the field with a challenge, exclaimed Camille. You see, so there's only one way out. I sit busy and you look for a job. Did I like the way you stood up to Stephen just now? Evelyn said with a smile. A few days later, Camille got a job as a salesman in a small market not far from home. The young woman was attracted by the fact that the market had a convenient schedule. It was necessary to come to 7 o'clock, and the Labor Day ended at 14:00. The only thing that marred the girl was not particularly high wages, about which she told Evelyn. The old woman said in response that she found something to be upset about. Your salary is higher than the one I received when I worked in the orphanage. Soon Camille went to work. She was a little uneasy, as she had never worked with weighty goods. However, her employer explained everything in detail and spent the day with her, helping the girl to cope with selling vegetables. And so already Camille worked for 3 days at the market. Here the girl met her neighbor Molly, who was selling fruit. The women talked to each other, and Molly in one of the conversations unexpectedly dropped that Camille had hired an employer for nothing. The woman looked at her interlocutor with surprise and asked her why she had said that. Molly embarrassed Cashin, and then, waving her hand, spoke out. And what will I hide it from you? All the same, after all, the truth will tell you others. The thing is that your boss Nancy very often changed salespeople. Regular customers will tell you that soon enough. I've had a couple of people tell me that there's a new salesperson again, but I didn't pay much attention to it. And why Nancy and the salesman do not linger. The answer is simple, constant shortages. At Sveta's, the longest that the sellers have worked is 4 months, as far as I remember. A few days after this conversation, there was an unpleasant incident at Camille's workplace. Toward the end of the workday, as usual, Nancy and her husband arrived to pick up the proceeds. Camille counted out the money and held it out to the supervisor, who looked at the financials and grudgingly said that the amount was too small. Camille narrowed her eyes and replied that they had overpriced vegetables, and customers often left for competitors. Nancy, hearing this, said that one should be able to interest the person who approached the goods and not rely on high prices. The businesswoman then approached the vegetables and inspected them meticulously. Nancy then saw some affected tomatoes. She took out the tomatoes and placed them in front of Camille. The woman looked at the woman perplexed and said quietly, "Vegetables have a way of spoiling. It's not my fault. I agree with you on that. But spoiled goods should be weighed and recorded and kept separately. But I did. I just didn't have time to put these tomatoes aside," Camille said, and quickly took out a notebook in which she wrote down the spoiled vegetables. The girl held out her notes to Nancy. The businesswoman took a quick look at the notebook and spoke in a stern voice. "All this will be deducted from your wages. And now these tomatoes can be taken to your home. How's that? And yesterday's game was cucumbers. I gave them to you. Are you going to take them out of my paycheck too? But that's not fair." Almost crying, said the girl. "It's not for me to teach you how to work with goods. You did not rush to me, so you should do your job. If you see that you have a spoilage of this or that kind of vegetables, you try to block it. From this day on, you are responsible for all spoiled tomatoes, cucumbers, and so on." Camille was walking home after a day's work in high spirits. As soon as she entered the apartment, Evelyn approached her and raised her index finger to her lips. That meant it was worth talking in a whisper. It meant it was worth talking in whispers since Vanessa was asleep. The old woman, seeing Camille in a bad mood, immediately realized that the girl was in trouble. She asked Camille to go to the kitchen and asked her what was wrong. The girl took out the tomatoes and put them on the table. And only then she told what had happened. And at the end of her narrative, she added, "I don't know how to weigh people. I am ashamed to do it. I will not hide that I add a few grams somewhere. I was advised to do so by a neighbor who sells nearby. But how can I answer the customers if I have a kilogram of tomatoes, for example, will rot? Do not be upset. From work a month and see what salary you get. If it will be pennies, then there's nothing to stay there. A month went by and an audit was done. Nancy informed Camille that there was a shortage and told her the amount. The girl was already ready for it, so without too many questions, the businesswoman offered to deduct the shortage. Then she informed Nancy that she was no longer working for her. The next day, Camille again went to look for work at the market where she worked. The girl did not want to go, and that was one reason not to go out with Nancy. Camille decided that it was possible to find a position as a vendor at the bazaar, which was a few stops away from her home. The girl remembered Evelyn's advice, and so she wanted to get a job selling piece goods. Camille was lucky right away. She saw several advertisements at the entrance to the market for sellers. Camille approached one employer, and he said he would be happy to hire her. The girl immediately asked about the salary, and the man voiced the amount. Camille has been drinking since morning, looked at the entrepreneur, and said that this is paltry money. The employer smirked and said, "I do not know you, my dear, so there will be a trial period. If we work out, well, in the sense that there will be no shortages, then in a couple of months your salary will increase. That's what all the entrepreneurs do around here. Maybe you should check it out." The girl sighed dejectedly and agreed to the man's proposal. And then she went on to look at the other sellers' merchandise. It was only when Camille walked a little farther away that she was stopped by a woman who was selling toys. The stranger spoke up. "I heard that you are tuning up for work. Well, I can tell you that all these entrepreneurs promise to raise wages after a while, but not all of them keep their promises. Are you saying that the man I hired will cheat me too? I don't know anything about him. I'm talking about me. I've been working here for about 4 months now, and I've had no complaints. And I was promised a raise. They're still giving me a raise. I'm out of options, so I'm going to have to take my chances and work for this man." Camille left the market after talking to the saleswoman and went to the bus stop. The girl felt disappointed that things were going wrong for her. She thought she would find a job where she would get a great salary, but everything turned out to be exactly the opposite. Soon the bus pulled up. The girl entered the transportation and sat down on the empty seats, but 2 girls were already sitting against her and talking animatedly. Camille, to distract herself from bitter thoughts, involuntarily began to listen to the dialogue of strangers. Initially, Camille realized that they were 2 former classmates who had met after a while and were discussing their peers who were in the same class. Soon Camille got tired of listening to the girls and wanted to turn her attention to the view from the window. So she heard what the brunette said, addressing her interlocutor. "Do you remember Miranda from our class, who always wore her older sister's clothes? We used to make fun of her for it all the time. You wouldn't believe it. I saw her the other day at the coffee shop where I was sitting with my son. I was stunned at how Katya looked originally. I didn't even believe it was her. I called out her name. Miranda smiled at me and moved to the table next to me. I stared at her with my mouth hanging open. It was a luxurious girl, which is immediately obvious that she visits expensive beauty salons. About the way she is dressed, I'm not talking at all. She has fashionable pants, a suit of such a coastal color, and in that to it in sandals. Practically on all fingers descendants and a gold ring. If in general to say, then in front of me was a stylish girl who knows her own price. Katya, whom we knew as the poorest in school. Probably married well, replied the person I was talking to. But you are wrong. She is not married, and is not even in a hurry. Then how did she succeed in life? The second girl asked, perplexed. This was curious for me too, and I asked her about it. Miranda answered that she earns money with her body. She said it so simply that I was very sweet of her answer. I asked her if doing it for money is disgusting. The answer was simple. Miranda said that now she can afford what she wants to do. And as for whether it is disgusting or not, she said that she treats it like a job. I was taken aback by this news. I don't even have the words to describe it. And further, Camille did not hear what the brunette said in response, because after the lecturer announced Camille's stop, the girl got off the bus and went home, thinking about the conversation between the two former classmates. Just then, the young woman saw a bench and sat down on it. She thought about this Miranda who earns money this way. Camille sat for a while as a call came from her neighbor. Wendy reported that Evelyn had become ill and had been rushed to the hospital. Then the neighbor added that Vanessa was at her place. Camille rose abruptly from the bench and ran home. The young woman immediately went to her, where she learned that Evelyn suddenly felt pain in her chest and called Wendy. She in turn called an ambulance, and the older woman was hospitalized. Camille was frightened. She was worried about the pensioner's condition. Camille called the hospital to find out how Evelyn was doing, but I answered that the woman was now in intensive care and all answers would not be available until the next day. Camille slumped down in her chair after the call. She already realized that tomorrow she would not go to any work because Vanessa had no one to leave her with. And also the girl realized that the pensioner would need medicine, which means that she would need finances. All these thoughts made the young woman cry. She was well aware that there was nowhere to go for help at the moment. The next day, Camille put her daughter in the stroller and went to the hospital. Camille mentally asked the Almighty to make Evelyn feel better. The girl was very afraid of losing her dear person. And here it was not that the old woman helped financially, but in another way, that the pensioner supported Camille morally and did not let her be discouraged. Soon Camille was already sitting in the hospital room opposite Evelyn, who had already been brought back from intensive care. The girl stroked the elderly woman's hand and asked her to hold on. The pensioner smiled at the ward and replied, "To me, don't worry, I made it through. But how will you be now?" "Alone, we are slowly leaving. I have an idea. Let's call your son to come here. It would be nice for you to see him. You're going about it the wrong way, sweetheart. I'm not going to die, so let your son come here when he gets a chance. And if you're implying that you're asking him for financial help, forget it. My son is having a hard time too. He's paying a mortgage, and he has 3 kids to feed, clothe, and shoe. All right, calm down. I didn't mean to ask him for help. I just thought it would do you good to see your son and get you back on your feet. The turkey thought I was screwed too," he said sternly. "And the woman." And then she said more softly, "All right, I knew you meant what you said out of the goodness of your heart. You'd better tell me that your job is going great. They said you'd be out in a week. So you have exactly 1 week to rest and get back into action," said Camille Savrasov. Having worked soon, Camille returned home with her daughter after the hospital. The young woman played with Utah for a while and then fed her and put her to bed. Afterward, she sat down on the couch and thought about her deception about Evelyn's job. Camille suddenly realized that she had not just told a lie to the older woman. It had been done intentionally. Camille had made the decision even then that she would go to the track to earn money. The realization that she would be selling her body no longer frightened the girl. Camille realized that she simply had no way out. It would be possible to go to work as a salesman, but the young woman already knew that she lacked the so-called salesmanship. This meant that Camille would have to pay for shortages or damaged goods. You could also work as a dishwasher, but it paid a pittance, and the other girl was not given, as there was no appropriate education. And so Camille decided to go to the highway. After a while, Evelyn was discharged from the hospital. The pensioner was taken away by Camille and her daughter. The girl fondly hugged the old woman and said that she would not allow her to be sick anymore. Evelyn smiled at her ward's words and promised. Evelyn smiled at her mentee's words and promised not to do it at all. A few more days passed after the discharge of the pensioner. Camille informed the elderly woman that she was going to work tomorrow. Evelyn asked the girl what her job was. Camille thought for a while and replied, "How can I put it to you so you understand? Basically, I have to go around the world. Basically, I have to go to businesses and collect signatures. Why collect them? I won't tell you yet, because it's gonna be a rotating assignment every few days. But the upside is that I'll be paid by the number of signatures, which means as soon as I complete the assignment, We'll have the money. That's a weird job. It's the first time I've heard of such a job, the older woman said, perplexed. There's nothing strange about it. We are not living in the Stone Age after all. There are many specialties now that you have never even heard of. I'm not going to argue with you. You'd better tell me everything after the first day of work. So Camille is getting ready for work. Evelyn is puzzled and asks the mentees why the working day starts so late, and the time was around 15 o'clock. Camille quickly finds an answer and says that at this time, people are better in contact, and therefore the opportunity to collect more signatures increases. And then the girl added that this way she could earn more money. After a while, Camille stood on the highway. She, so that the pensioner did not guess anything, bought a mini skirt and a blouse with a deep neckline in advance. In all these clothes, the girl changed before going out on the highway. And here already Camille stands on the road and waits for the truck. Initially, cars stopped in front of her, and the drivers offered Camille a ride. However, the girl immediately decided that she needed chauffeurs who work as truckers. She herself did not understand why this decision came to her mind, and soon a truck slowed down in front of Camille. A man's head peeked out of the cab. The driver evaluated the girl and offered her a ride. Camille smiled and got into the driver's cab. The man once again looked at her traveling companion and said, "You must be new here, because I haven't seen you here before. And you? I see that you are already a regular here, if you know everyone," said the girl, trying to say so that her voice did not shake from excitement. However, the man as if caught her inner state, and so he asked, "You are obviously going to do this case for the first time. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. I know the rates, and I will pay even a little more than what is required." After a while, Camille was already out of the cab. The young woman adjusted her skirt, and at the same moment heard a man shouting to her that she was gorgeous and that he would like to meet her again. The girl reluctantly waved him off and walked slowly down the road. At the moment, Camille felt dirty. She couldn't stand the urge to shower to wash off the stranger's touch, but Camille forced herself to think about the fact that this was just a job that would help her and not live. The young woman came home. Already as before the evening, Evelyn looked anxiously at the ward, but the latter smiled amiably and said that there was the first earnings, and handed the pensioner the money. The old woman looked at the money and frightenedly said, "Wow, a decent amount for one working day. Today was just a lucky day. There was only one task that needed to be done today. So I tried to collect more signatures. I had to visit a lot of different agencies, but it was worth it. I don't like you coming home alone so late. You're a girl who knows what can happen. You better get fewer signatures and come home earlier. You know, there's a popular wisdom that you can't make all the money you want. That goes for you. We'll see. And now we should be happy that we have finances, and we will be able to buy, not a crib, so that the child sleeps not in a stroller. I'm also very tired as I've been walking a lot. So can I take a shower and go to bed?" Evelyn offered the girl to eat first, and then already take hygienic procedures, but Camille refused. The young woman wanted to actually take a shower and just forget about what she had done today of her own free will. As soon as Camille got to the bed and Evelyn, who had stayed with her tonight because Camille had come home late, was lying next to her, she felt ashamed. The landlady turned to the pensioner in a whisper and apologized for the late visit. The guest stroked her ward in response and asked her not to worry about nothing. Only after these words, Evelyn Camille calmly sighed. Immediately, she was struck by an electric shock. She realized that, doing such work, she had not thought about the most important thing, that she could get pregnant. Camille immediately decided that she would buy birth control tomorrow. The next day, Camille didn't go anywhere. What surprised the pensioner? The elderly woman asked why Camille had the day off today. The girl laughed in response and said that she would not have a job every day. Camille could not admit to Evelyn that today she simply did not want to go to the track, as there was still a residue on her soul from the way she had earned the money. It had been 2 days since Camille had given pleasure to the driver of the truck. It was only after that that the young woman decided to go out on the highway again. It was not an easy decision for her, and it was as if felt by Evelyn, who asked the girl where her office with the management was located. Camille realized that if she didn't make a precise schedule of the so-called work, the pensioner would sound the alarm and start to find out everything herself. So Camille decided that from this day forward, she would go out to the track once every 3 days. Camille had already been working in this way for 2 weeks. During that time, the girl bought her daughter a crib. Camille realized that she could not go on like this forever, and she comforted herself with the fact that it was only until her daughter grew up a little. And then the girl planned to give Anya to the kindergarten and herself to enroll in correspondence studies at the institute. And so Camille once again went out on the highway. She was waiting for a truck, and at the same time remembered the movie Pretty Woman. She liked this movie very much. The girl imagined herself in the role of the main character and dreamed that she would one day happen in her life. She wanted to meet a prince on a white horse who will pull her out of the swamp and will love not only her, but also Anya that. However, the young woman understood that this will not happen, as it only happens in movies, where the plot is invented to interest the viewer. And yet the girl still dreamed about it, realizing that it would not happen to her. Reflections, and the girl was interrupted by a stopped car. Camille looked into the car, and from horror, the whole transport belonged to the husband of her neighbor. And this meant that now the man would start asking unnecessary questions about what she was doing on the highway. And in fact, the car door opened, and the neighbor looked out and said in surprise, "Camille, I didn't expect to see you here. What are you doing here?" "My wife told me you got a job." "That's right, Wendy. But it's my day off. And here I am waiting for a young man. Let's just say I have a date. I'll ask you not to tell your spouse about this. She'll be asking me all kinds of questions." "That's right." Laughing, the man said. And then he added, "My Wendy, curious person wants to know everything about everyone. Only that you chose a meeting with your boyfriend in a not very convenient place." "Yeah, I already realized that." As soon as the neighbor left, Camille breathed a sigh of relief. She'd expected a lot more questions from Wendy's husband, and there weren't many. Now the girl was only worried that the neighbor would not tell about their encounter on the road. Camille knew very well that Wendy often met with Evelyn and could tell the elderly woman that Camille was standing on the highway. And if the old woman found out about it, she wouldn't let up until she knew the whole truth. Camille, on the other hand, absolutely did not want Evelyn to know the way she made her money. A few days passed. Camille was once again standing on the highway, waiting for a truck. And then a beautiful black Jeep stopped in front of her. 2 big guys jumped out of the cabin, who picked up the girl under the elbows and quickly pushed her into the car. The young woman did not even have time to shout, as she was already in the Jeep. And here an obese man turned to her from the front seat, who looked at her carefully and then asked her how long she had been doing this. Camille was startled and said she did not know what he was talking about. Her phrase made the stranger angry, and he spoke harshly. "You don't make a pie girl of yourself here. This is my territory. And I have already been informed that there is a young lady who works without taxes, and as it turns out, this young lady is you. So let's be honest. Otherwise, my boys are gonna have a different conversation with you." Camille, looking at the stranger, clearly realized that it was not worth lying to this man, because he would keep his word. The girl admitted that she had been out on the track for a little less than a month, and immediately added that she didn't do it every day. Hearing the young woman's retort, the man nodded contentedly. Then he said softly, "My name is Sam. Now I see that you're telling the truth, and you're a good girl, because you figured it out the first time. Now listen to what I have to say. You work on my territory, which means I have to pay tax to the treasury, like any decent citizen. But the treasury for you will not be the state, but my pocket. And in general, on the 1st of every month, you will bring me a sum of money to my address. If you don't, You realize you'll be dealing with my boys sitting next to you. Now tell me what you got." "I've got you scared," the girl muttered fearfully. "That's great. It's a pleasure doing business with you," said the man and handed Camille a piece of paper on which was written an address and a sum of money. Camille looked at the entry and the window, and then said, but this is a large sum. It's almost half of what I'll earn in a month, and who has an easy life these days? You see, I'm not an unemployment fund. I want to eat good food too. And if you don't like this amount, go work at the factory as a laborer. I didn't force you to go to the highway, so you decide what's good for you. Anyway, this is a short conversation. Either you pay or you're out of here. And I'm waiting for your decision right now." "Okay, I'll do it." After that, the young woman was allowed out of the car. And as soon as Camille left the car, the Jeep drove off. Camille looked after the car and tears rolled down her cheeks. She realized that from now on, she would have to pay back almost half of the money she had earned. After this conversation, the young woman decided that today she would not work. After a while, the girl was already at home. She entered the apartment and saw the surprised face of the pensioner, who asked why she did not come so early. Camille glumly replied that the day had not gone well and there were no errands to run. Evelyn looked at the girl carefully and said sternly, "Don't tell me fairy tales here. Tell me what really happened. I've known you for years, and I can see that you're worried." Camille was about to tell me the truth about where and how she made her money. But then she looked at Evelyn. She felt ashamed to tell the old woman. The girl collected the pensioner again and wrote tall tales that she had not been paid for her assignment today. Evelyn, inquisitive, looked at the interlocutor and helped. "I hope you are not deceiving me. And about the fact that they paid, I understand that it's frustrating. But you can't be too upset about it. Every job has a slip-up. You had one. All right, calm down. Come on, I'll feed you and tell you how we fought the duck today." After Evelyn's words, the girl sighed with relief that the conversation on a dangerous topic was over. And then together with the pensioner went to the kitchen, where she listened to the elderly woman, who enthusiastically told how she spent the day's sonnets. The next day, Camille felt ill. She had a fever and a sore throat. Camille realized she had a cold. The young woman wrote about herself as she realized that it was impossible to be sicker now. After all, it was urgent to earn money to pay tribute to the track. Soon, Evelyn arrived at Camille's house and immediately announced that the labor activity would cease for the time being. Camille, as soon as she heard this with a sad smile, said that these were the words she had expected from Evelyn. In response, she said, "Don't think I'm such a predictable madam. I'll call a doctor and persuade the doctor to put you in the hospital. You don't have to do that. You're a doctor, so treat me with us agreed, but only sick. You will follow all my instructions." With a smile, said Evelyn, specifically addressing Daddy's ward. Camille recovered. 7 days later, she wanted to go to work again, but she was prevented from doing so by a pensioner. The elderly woman said that Camille had not yet recovered from her illness and needed to stay at home for a couple more days. There was nothing left for the girl to do, only to agree with Evelyn's decision. 2 days later, Camille was already standing on the highway. She was thinking about how to raise the necessary amount for Wendy. The young woman realized that she was not ready to go to work every day, but she also realized that it was necessary to give the money. And then one solution came to her mind, that one day it was necessary to double the number of clients, and only she thought about it as a truck stopped in front of her. The girl climbed into the cab and closed the door and then turned to the driver. Immediately, with fear, she faintly shuddered. In front of her sat the man who had robbed her of her innocence. The young woman only wanted to get out of the car. As the young man menacingly ordered her not to move from her seat, and in doing so grabbed her arm, Camille expelled and asked Stephen to let her go. The guy grinned and said that she had willingly got into the vehicle, and then added that you were a pious lady offering your services on the highway. and at that time you did not make a road out of yourself. Well, let's see what you have managed to learn during this time. I can't wait to reminisce with an old acquaintance who picked up during this time of experience. They're gonna let me out of the car. And don't even think that I'm going to have fun with you, and you shouldn't shame me, since it's only to your credit that I'm out here on the highway making a living. You're the one who took my virginity against my will, and I got pregnant afterward. I have a young daughter who needs food, diapers, skates, etc., and my allowance isn't very high. And you knew I was an orphanage kid with no one to stand up for me. So you used your power that day. I hate you. Are you telling me you had my baby? That's an unexpected twist. Don't tell me you want to get child support from me now. You make money on the highway. Somebody got you pregnant, Stephen said defiantly. Even though you're the biological father of the child, I can assure you that we don't need your money. You can choke on your finances, and the fact that you have a daughter you can forget forever. And let's stop this stupid conversation. There's only one thing I don't understand right now. I mean, you're such a big shot. And you work as a trucker. That doesn't make sense. Okay, I don't want to waste my time with you. Let me get out of the car. I can't take care of myself. Camille tried to open the door of the truck, but she was pulled to her by Stephen Force and tried to lift her skirt. The girl screamed in desperation and began to fight back. At that moment, a voice came from behind them. It was a man speaking to the driver. Let her go right now. What are you doing? Partner, you know I like to have fun with the girls on the road, Stephen said in a perplexed voice. You'll find another girl on the way, the man replied. Christopher, you're my partner, but in this case I don't understand you, said Stephen, and let the girl go. In the meantime, Camille glanced back and looked at the protector. He was a handsome middle-aged man who looked her straight in the eye. The girl nodded gratefully and started to open the door of the truck, but she was called by her partner Stephen. The young woman looked back and glanced questioningly at the man. At that moment, he took out a purse and took out some bills, which he immediately handed to Camille with the words, "This is enough for you and the little girl for the first time, and try to change your trade. It doesn't suit you. You'd better find another way to make money. Now go home to your daughter, who's sure to miss you." But I can't take the money. Just like that, Camille said. You can. Take it and go. If I see you on the road again, they'll think you're a fallen woman, Christopher said sternly. The young woman took the money and nodded gratefully once more and quickly got out of the car. As soon as the young woman left the cab, the truck started at the same moment. Camille looked at the car and thought about the stranger's words. Camille stood for a while longer and then headed home. The girl thought that there was only one trouble for today. It was the meeting with Stephen, but she was wrong. Camille had just arrived home, so she saw that her neighbor was visiting. Camille said hello to her, but she said nothing and hurried away to her room. The girl looked at her neighbor with a puzzled look. Then she turned to Evelyn. What's the matter with Wendy? I came in and she just ran off. She didn't even say hello, and I thought we'd had no quarrel with her. The pensioner didn't say a word in response. The old woman asked if she had earned it today. Camille girl with a smile replied that she received a good sum for work, and with these words began to take out her purse to show her finances. Camille took out the money and handed it to Evelyn with words, "Here, take at least part of it. I suggest that tomorrow we go to the market together and buy some goodies. How about it?" The pensioner approached the girl and took the money. The old woman studied the bills for a long time and then asked her mockingly what was Camille's task today. Camille immediately sensed a trick in Evelyn's question. She answered that today she was collecting signatures for the advertisement. The old woman laughed and then with a sharp movement threw the money in the face of her ward with the words, "Who did you decide to deceive?" And after this phrase, the pensioner snatched from Camille's hands a bag from which to shake out the clothes. Evelyn picked up the fallen short skirt from the floor, as well as a blouse with a deep neckline. The older woman held out the clothes to the girl and said reproachfully, "This is your uniform. When you collect signatures from truckers, Don't give me any more fairy tales. Wendy saw you today, driving down the highway with her husband. A neighbor told me you were wearing those clothes when you got into the truck. She also told me that her husband had seen you on the road before. By the way, he's been getting the same shit from you. That you were on a date. How could you do something like that? Tell me, don't you hate what you're doing? Can you imagine what your daughter will think of you when she finds out? I'm ashamed of what you're doing right now. It's like you stabbed me in the back. I didn't expect you to deceive me like that. You. Evelyn shoved things into Camille's hands. Camille and silently went to the kitchen, where she sat down at the table, and not in a coffin, and cried softly. Camille came in after her and tried to hug the older woman, but the latter pushed her away. The girl realized that she had caused her dear one unbearable heartache. She wanted to say something in her defense, but there were no words. Camille knelt down in front of Evelyn and spoke loudly. It's my fault, and I admit it. I know I have offended you very much, and I have nothing to say for myself. Believe me, I did not go to the track for my own pleasure, but only to survive. Just don't pretend you're poor. There are plenty of single moms who find a way to make ends meet, and they don't go selling their bodies. Like you did, scold me with tears in my eyes directly killed Camille. I won't tell you anything else. I'll just leave now and try to forget that I ever met you. Small pennies. I'll pay you back, but we won't see each other anymore. And you can continue to go out for signatures on the highway, said the old woman and got up from the table. She wanted to take a step, but could not, for her knees were encompassed by Camille, who cried sobbing profusely. For a few minutes the girl held Evelyn by the legs and then raised her face to the pensioner, and through her sobs said, You may scold me with hurtful words. I bear it all. Just don't cut us out of your life. I promise you, on my knees, that I will never go out on the highway again. I don't know how I'll make a living yet, but believe me, I'll find a way. Just give me one chance. I beg you not to turn your back on us. You know very well that you're the only person we have close to us. I've only now realized what I can't lose. Believe me, I'm truly sorry for what I did, but I did not know how to get out of such a situation when there is no money, sometimes even for bread. I just ask you to believe that the money I brought today, it was not earned in this way. It was given to me by a stranger who saved me from Stephen. And that man gave me a good admonition too, that if he ever sees me on the highway again, he will consider me a fallen woman. He said the right words to you. All right, baby, if you promise me it won't happen again, we'll stick together. We'll try to forget this month completely, like it never happened. Now go see your daughter. I think she's awake. Quietly spoke the old woman and stroked the girl's head. In the evening of that day, when the Evelyn players had already left, Camille thought about life. She realized that she had made a promise to the pensioner, and the girl knew that she would keep her word in any case, even if she had to starve. And at the moment, Camille was concerned with another question: where to find a part-time job. Camille spent a long time in her thoughts, and when she looked at the clock, she was surprised that already at 0:00 the young woman came to her daughter and admired the baby. Then the girl shared the bed and lay down, and at that moment for some reason she remembered the departure of her neighbor. Now Camille understood why Wendy had treated her so dryly. Camille decided that she had to talk to the neighbor tomorrow. 10 days passed. Camille kept her promise to Evelyn. Now when the pensioner came to Camille, the girl went to look for a job. And soon she was lucky to get a job as a dishwasher in a kindergarten. The salary was small, but Camille was happy with the money, and the schedule suited her. Another week flew by and Camille had a day off. The young woman decided to take her child for a walk at lunchtime. She had already started to get things to dress. The doorbell rang. Camille was surprised by it, as she was not expecting anyone, and especially Evelyn knew that she had a day off today and did not come these days. The girl then thought that was right. A neighbor came over to chat and hurriedly opened the door. However, it was not Wendy who turned out to be the evening, but a stranger who held a gorgeous bouquet of pink roses and a large fluffy bear. Camille looked at the man with surprise and immediately recognized him as the man who had given her money for nothing. The landlady was embarrassed to see Stephen's partner and spoke crumpled. "Hello, you must be here for the debt. How did you find me? You have a way of keeping guests on the doorstep. I'm glad you remembered me, though. That means you left a good impression of me. I'm not used to letting strangers into my home." "Oh my goodness," the man exclaimed, and then went on. "We're the ones who don't know each other. Perhaps you don't remember my name, but I remember yours perfectly well because I heard your whole conversation with Stephen. Only after I heard what that man did to you that I did not let him do it again. My name is Christopher, by the way. I remember Stephen calling you Christopher. All right, come on in, but I'm warning you right away. I don't have the money to pay you back at the moment. And one more thing, I don't do that trade anymore. If you'd like to collect your debt in this equivalent, I gave the money freely and from the bottom of my heart. I really wanted you to stop doing this business," said the man and handed the girl flowers and a toy, and then crossed the threshold. "But I don't understand why you came to me," the young woman asked in surprise. "That's an interesting question, but I will answer you now. Initially agree that you will not call me you. Otherwise I feel like an old man. I'm only 31 years old. Now to answer your question. When I saw you in the car, I was struck by your looks. Then I thought you'd disappear and all my thoughts of you would be gone. But as time went on, I kept thinking about you. Then I realized that Cupid's arrow had accidentally pierced my heart, and thus I stand beside you." After these words, the crying of a child was heard from the room. The young woman rushed into the room. She put the flowers and the toy on the bed and picked up her daughter in her arms. Following, the mistress of the apartment followed the guest. The man looked at the little girl and softly said, "It seems to me that with a toy I hurried. You should have bought another set of rattles. Since your daughter is still a baby, you shouldn't have bought anything at all. By the way, my daughter's name is Vanessa. She's 5 months old. I forgot to ask you how you found me. Stephen gave me a beautiful name. He gave me the street, the house, the entrance. I had to find the apartment on my own." "Very interesting. Can you tell me why Stephen is a trucker? I mean, his father's not a poor man. I'd be happy to share. He told me why it happened. But first I'd like you to offer me a seat. That's what hospitable hostesses usually do," the man said with a smile. The young woman hummed with embarrassment and offered the guest a chair while she sat down on the bed with the baby. The girl turned to Christopher and looked questioningly at the man. The guest realized that he was expected to answer, and so began his story from the narration of the new acquaintance. The landlady learned that Stephen's father's business had failed and had to take a large loan from the bank to restore his own business. However, the finances did not help. Eventually, the business went bust, and there was a debt to the bank. And then it was decided to sell Stephen's apartment to pay off the debt. The young man's father could not bear it all and died suddenly. Stephen was left without money for life, and he had nothing to pay for his studies at the institute. So the guy dropped out of college and got a job as a trucker. Christopher told all this while looking at Camille, who was listening attentively. When the man finished the story, the girl smiled mysteriously, which did not hide from the guest. And he asked, "You must be gloating." "Not at all. I just think that Stephen will now understand how to live on a simple salary and not boast about daddy's money." "You're right about that. Stephen is the sole earner in the family now, since his mother never worked after marrying his father. And from what I understand, my partner's mom isn't going to do it. But I'm not interested in that anymore." "Me neither. We were gonna go for a walk. Go with the duck. You won't mind that. So you're gonna tell me about yourself." And soon the couple and the baby were walking in the park. Christopher told the girl he lived in a one-room apartment. He has been working as a trucker for 6 years. He likes this occupation, and also said that he was married. But the family life did not work out. He said that he likes to guess Japanese crossword puzzles and dreams of visiting the Northern Territory in the future. Hearing the man's last wish, Camille laughed and said, "Everyone wants to go to the south, but you want to go to the north. You are strange. It's very simple. My parents are from there, and they often talk about it. If only you could hear how enthusiastically my mother and father described the north. Why am I telling you this now? I'll get to know them. You'll hear it firsthand. What makes you think I'm going to meet them? Wait a minute. Don't be so quick to say no. It's not like I'm asking you to get into bed. I just want to start by courting you. And if everything turns out well, then we can create a family with you in the future." From the lack of the young man, with a laugh uttered Camille. The couple walked with the child for a while, and then Christopher walked the girl home, helped her carry the stroller to the 3rd floor, and at parting asked permission to call and visit. The girl responded to the young man with consent. A month passed as Christopher visited Camille for the first time. During this time, the couple met several times. They often called each other. The man always inquired about Vanessa's accomplishments to the young woman at each call. It was a pleasure. It didn't take long to fly by. Another month, Camille came home from work and was surprised to hear someone in her apartment speaking in a man's voice. She listened and recognized Christopher's voice. The girl went into the room and saw the man talking sweetly with Evelyn. The old woman saw the girl and said with a smile that Camille had come to visit them. Camille looked at Christopher with surprise, and he immediately knelt down on one knee in front of Camille, took out a small box from the pocket of his jeans, which he opened and handed to the girl with the words, "Here I am making you a marriage proposal. I met Evelyn without your permission and told this worthy woman how I love you. She said she would bless us only after you gave your consent. Now my fate is in your hands." Camille looked at Evelyn, confused initially, and then shifted her gaze to the man. The girl took a box from which she pulled out a thin wedding ring. She slipped the piece of jewelry onto her finger and admired it, taking her hand aside, then looked at Christopher again and asked quietly, "What about my job at the track? That's what you gave me, isn't it? You're going to remind me of that someday, aren't you? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? I believe I met you in a more romantic setting, like the day I first walked into this apartment. Make it look like I got the wrong address. And by the way, Stephen is no longer my partner. I asked management to do that, and they've gone along with it. Now I have a partner who's not considered for the girls. He's a model family man. That's what I'm going to be. As soon as you say yes, what can I tell you? Naturally, I say I want to be your wife," the girl said happily. And at the same moment she found herself in the arms of a man. Christopher tenderly kissed the young woman and quietly in her ear said, "You have now made me with the happiest person. I love you madly, and I will never hurt you or Anya. I will do everything possible so that you do not need anything. We will be a model family. And now you can't refuse to meet your relatives, who already know about you and are eagerly waiting for me to introduce you to them. I understand that you are preparing me to talk to my father and mother about the wonderful northern region, as well as hinting that we will have a joint trip to those lands. That's a good point. And you are not only beautiful, but also smart." Laughing, Christopher replied, and kissed the young woman on the lips.